What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
What is going on, OTB Nation? Welcome into episode number 364 of the award-nominated, honorably mentioned, number 9 NCAA ranked, and of course viewable on YouTube Outside the Box podcast, the official lacrosse pod on the Underground Sports Philadelphia Podcast Network. It's KB coming at you from Underground Studios. We're recording this on a Thursday night at almost 10:30 p.m., so you already know it's going to be a doozy of a show. And joining me, like he always does, the incomparable, the ever so hilarious Coach Deej.
Why are you so nice to me, bro?
Hey,
Why
man,
are you so nice?
look at you, vintage.
Vintage.
That's throwback. It is Thursday. Is Throwback Thursday still a thing? Find out in the comment section.
Facts. Had to do a little special intro since back in the old digs. It feels
Shout
good.
out to the tape.
You're hilarious. Can't wait to get on Stick Talk. Follow the boys.
Man, can the boys get us on? Can we do the collabo? Like,
I mean, at least one of them is going to hear this because he is an avid listener. So he keeps telling me that they got to get me/us on the pod, and
hey,
yet to get any messages about doing so.
Them DMs is always open. My DMs like AJ Brown, always open.
He know my DM's always open. We can talk about Michigan basketball too.
Hit that line.
Give me a heart attack.
We got a lot to dive into on this episode. From the NLL, crazy whirlwind week of trades that has gone down that have impacted both of our teams. We will preview the week ahead. We have a voicemail from our good pal Aiden as well that we'll tap into. We'll give you our picks for the NLL. We'll dive into the PLL as some free agency frenzy has begun, and a prominent player has announced their retirement tonight as we record this on Thursday night. And then Deej will take us around the college landscape as we prepare for another week of college lacrosse. But before we get into everything, make sure you guys are following us on the socials at OTB Lax Pod across the board. We're on every platform. Every single platform you can follow us. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Facebook, Blue Sky. We're on everything. So follow us on the socials. Follow DJ SCS_next great. Follow Chase at the PLL Pipeline. Follow Hoots at Hoot Sports Media. He will be Hoots on the ground this weekend as well against your Roughnecks. So we'll have some close-up personal photos of a new member of the squad. But follow Hoots. You can follow me at KBIZZL311. Subscribe to the pod, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts in audio form. Leave us a 5-star review. It goes a long way for helping this show continue to grow. Helps everybody find not only this show on those platforms and get it into the algorithm, but helps people find all of the shows on our platform, on our network. So keep subscribing, keep leaving those 5-star reviews. It truly does go a long way. And thank you guys for still tuning in last week, even though the episode got up super late. You still came through in droves, which is always helpful. Big thank you to everybody that was on standby waiting for the episode, but you tuned in, and that means a lot. So shout out to you if you tuned in last week. Also, I'm looking at our analytics. Very funny that the episode after we declared Ops Week and Ops Week hit like old school OTB numbers in terms of downloads and stuff. I was like, yes, the people are here. They understand the assignment. And subscribe to they love us. Exactly. Subscribe to the YouTube channel as well if you want to watch the show every week. YouTube.com/@UndergroundSportsPhiladelphia. That's where you get full video episodes of this show every week, full video episodes of every show on our network, clips, shorts, live streams, original video content. It is all on our YouTube channel. We're 1,030 subscribers. Trying to get to 1,100 before March Madness tips off, which is in just a couple of weeks, which is crazy. So keep subscribing, leave a like on the video, drop a comment in the comment section, and click that bell icon so you know whenever new videos go live. And if you want the OTB College Show, subscribe to the Outside the Box podcast YouTube channel, youtube.com/@OTBLaxPod. If we get to 100 subscribers, Hoots and Deej will be hosting the OTB College Show every single week. Video form will be on that YouTube channel. Audio form will be on the standard podcast feed. We're 49 subscribers away from that milestone happening. So go subscribe over there as well. And this show is proudly presented by Shootout For Soldiers. Guys, we've been telling you about Shootout For Soldiers for quite some time now, and their 2025 schedule is fully loaded. And this weekend, the 285 Atlanta Lacrosse Invitational, you can still register. And then before you know it, Shootout For Soldiers Houston, Texas will be happening March 8th and 9th. Atlanta, May 17th. Jacksonville, North Carolina, May 25th. Long Island, July 9th and 10th. Massachusetts, July 12th. Ohio, July 19th. Canandaigua, July 26th and 27th. Virginia on August 2nd and 3rd. Colorado on August 9th. And Baltimore on September 5th and 6th. So many events upcoming. So check out everything that Shootout For Soldiers has going on this summer. Shootoutforsoldiers.com/events is the website. It's linked in the description. Register, get involved. You can request info, find out how to register, become a sponsor, volunteer, donate. Everything is listed in the description at shootoutforsoldiers.com/events. Go register. It's bringing community together with the sport of lacrosse to help our nation's veterans. So once again, shootoutforsoldiers.com/events and register for one of their upcoming 2025 season events throughout this entire spring, summer craziness that is lacrosse season. And we thank Shootout For Soldiers for being a proud presenting partner of the pod. Deej, we got a lot to talk about, man. Crazy. I'm glad we waited. We were talking about that before we started recording because more stuff just came through. But let's start with NLL Week 13 and recap the week that was our craziness around the league. Halifax went belt to ass on Ottawa, just like I predicted. 14-9. Just like nobody predicted, Las Vegas goes into the Loud House and doubles up Colorado 14-7. Saskatchewan wins 10-7 over Vancouver in Vancouver. Georgia pulls the overtime win over Toronto, which effectively ended their season, according to multiple moves that were made. The Philadelphia Wings lose to the Albany Firewolves 11-6 in Albany. Rochester beats Calgary 15-10. And Buffalo survives San Diego 13-12. Road teams go 6-1 this week. Of course, the Wings, the one team that can't make it a perfect week. But Hoots did get the bat signal from us. I don't know if you caught it. He did the research.
I did.
So everybody, Hoot said, after some quick and hopefully accurate research, NLL road teams are a combined 41-35 this season, which is a .539 winning percentage. Buffalo is a league best 4-0. Saskatchewan is 5-1. And Albany is a league worst 1-4. And the remaining teams' road records: Georgia 4-1, Calgary 4-2, Rochester 4-3, Colorado, Halifax, Ottawa 3-2, San Diego 2-3, Toronto 2-3, Las Vegas, Philadelphia, Vancouver all 2-4. We're not crazy. We said it last week. We were trying to figure it out. Road teams are just dominating the NLL landscape this season for whatever reason. And genuinely now, going into this upcoming weekend, I am so tempted when it's our pick segment to just go straight road teams because that's what's winning. Road teams are dominating the NLL landscape, and there's data that backs it. It's not just one of those things that feels like a vibe, like, oh, road teams won a lot this week, road teams won a lot 2 weeks. No, like there's definitive evidence that road teams are over 500 by a sizable clip. And to me, that's like a storyline that should be out there, more talked about in the NLL like media landscape. And I feel like just us and Adam Levy are the only ones yelling into the void about it.
Yeah, it's interesting that like it's not talked about, and like I think it's happening not even just in lacrosse, but in a lot of sports where road teams are starting to win a lot, and that home field, home court, home whatever, kind of surface you play on doesn't really exist anymore. Teams are able to go in and kind of block out the noise and just handle their business. And we're seeing that, to an unreal clip in this NLL season where every week more than half of the road teams are winning. I don't know what that really says about the league other than there's true parity. You have to show up every night, regardless of if you're home or away. The travel doesn't matter as much. The crowd doesn't matter as much. You have to show up and play because road teams are showing up and they're playing. And I think that's great for the league. It almost begs more fans to come out so that home field advantage does return, and that you do have a stadium that's 10, 15, 20,000 people, and it is a little bit tougher to go on the road and win. But there's some teams that do it a little bit better than others. Buffalo's still done a really great job at home. And if you go, I didn't really look too far into the tweet, but I mean, you kind of look at some of the records. Some teams are below 500 on the road, so that means there are a couple teams that are winning some games at home. So it's in the middle, but realistically, this should be a point for front offices to get more fans in the building to recreate that home field advantage, and also for teams to find what it is that's allowing road teams to come into their stadium and win.
Again, I mean, you brought up Buffalo, and like, I agree. Like, there is in all sports kind of like that lost art of the home field advantage. And like, I'm lucky, like, I get to experience it with the Eagles. Like, Eagles home field advantage is second to none in the NFL. Like, it's crazy how much of a force it is. And like, you look back at those, early 2010 Seahawks teams, like the Legion of Boom, 12th man type of thing. Like, that was a true home field advantage. The Buffalo Bandits have a true home field advantage. You look around other sports and like you can pinpoint the teams that have it. Like, I've experienced it with like Phillies baseball. Like, the Phillies genuinely have a true, you don't have Jeff Passan, who is, the number one source for baseball, like insider info, calling Citizens Bank Park an SEC football like crowd inside a baseball stadium for nothing. Like, there are those teams that still do it very well, but I think there's a lot of teams that have kind of like regressed to like the median and really only pop out when it's a big time game or a big time player rolls into town. And it's not an every week occurrence like it is in Buffalo, like it is, I know Colorado lost this week, but like the Loud House is a definitive like place that is difficult to play at. Saskatchewan, difficult place to play at. They're 5-1 at home this year. Or 4-1 at home this year. They're 5-1 on the road.
They're just good.
They're just And I mean, even dating back to like their run when they won 3 out of 4, like their home field advantage was a huge part of that.
Yep.
So I think like there's still cases of it existing, but a lot of teams got some catching up to do, to say the least.
Yeah, they have a lot of catching up to do, and I just love that the road teams are making it hard for them to do so. But I think the sport is growing into the level that people are going to see anybody can win at any time. This is an exciting sport. It's up and down the floor, lots of goals, lots of good saves. To me, the parity in the league is a good thing. I will say that time and time again. That is a hill I absolutely will die on. Is dynasties are not good for any sport. I will forever die on that hill. To me, fans need parity. Your league is so much better. Your seats are so much more full when every team truly feels like they have a chance. Not like, we're all fighting to get a chance to beat X team. Like the AFC in the NFL is like the perfect example to me. I feel like everybody's fighting for a chance to beat the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
That's boring. I want everybody to be fighting for a chance to beat anybody who's in the AFC Championship game, not just the Chiefs. The NFC is a great example of parity. We've seen the last few years different teams end up in the NFC Championship game almost every year. It makes every NFC team feel like if they have a good season, they have a shot at the NFC Championship game. In the AFC, Ravens, Bills, Chiefs. You might get an outlier team one year that pops off, but realistically,
The
those are the
Bengals
three.
sometimes sprinkle themselves in there. But
And,
that's the thing too, like with the NFL, like, and I talked about this on the main pod, like when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, like we talk about the AFC like it's this like power conference because they have the quote unquote better quarterback play. They have the better quarterback talent with Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, air quotes here for the people just listening, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence. Sure, you can have a good quarterback, but at the end of the day, we've gotten to a point in NFL discussion that I'm glad we have not gotten to in lacrosse because it is such a talent-filled sport, just like the NFL is. The NFL is a team sport. Football is a team sport. It's one of the most necessary team sports out there. The thing that nullifies a good quarterback is a great defense. And all those quarterbacks I just listed, guess what? They don't play week in and week out in the AFC. Good defenses. The AFC does not have good defenses at all. The NFC, Eagles, Commanders had a solid defense this year. The Packers defense for most of the year was very good. The Vikings defense this year overperformed but played very well. The Lions defense when they were healthy, good defense. The Seahawks defense had a pretty solid season this year. When they're healthy, the 49ers have a good defense. The NFC has balanced teams. The AFC has good quarterbacks. Tell me what wins. A balanced team wins championships. The Chiefs have won all of those Super Bowls. Sure, you have referee discussion and everything, but at the end of the day, the Chiefs also have a very, very good defense, and they have one of the best quarterbacks going. That's a balanced team. Mahomes finds a way to win for them. Their defense handles the other side of the ball. That's how you win in the NFL. Luckily, we have not gotten there in lacrosse where it's like we're pinpointing one player as like what makes a good team. There's so many talented players on all of these teams, but it is fascinating that like they're kind of blocking out the noise and saying it doesn't matter if we're home, road, or up in the sky. We're going to play and we're going to see who the better team is at the end of the game.
Which is the way it should be in every sport. Is at the end of the day, the game has to be played. So go out there and play it and see who actually comes out to be the best, and then let all the floor talking, do the work instead of X, Y, and Z. But that's sports, and it will always be that way. So it always gives us something to talk about because you jabronis out there will say just about anything.
Not the jabronis.
The jabronis.
What stood out to you from the week that was before we get into the real discussion about this week? And that's kind of the results fueling a metric shit ton of trades that happened this past week.
I was so wrong about Ottawa, and it makes me question a lot of decisions I've made. They just came out so flat, and like now I'm ready to dive into what's going on with Jeff T. He had that game where he like popped off, and everybody's like, and then he went right back to being the Jeff T he's been all week or all year.
Mm-hmm.
I got big question marks about that now. Like, Jeff, are you okay? Is you cool, bro? Like,
and like he still had 5 points. Like he had a hat trick and
like
2 assists in this game.
He's still doing well, but like he doesn't have that Jeff T feel right now.
Can I say something without people yelling at me?
No, but go on.
I'm gonna act like Dora and talk to the TV. Hey, chat, can we talk about something and not get angry? Great. I think Jeff T is being too selfless. Like too selfless. He's gotta like have that beast in him that we've seen come to life. And if he's got opportunities, he's just gotta finish. Like he's just gotta take it to the rack. Like be that fucking dog on the floor or on the field and say, like, I'm him. Let me do this. Like, you're too good of a player, of a talent, and of a teammate to not enforce yourself as like the best player on the floor, because 99% of the time, with a few exceptions, whenever Jeff Teet's playing in a game, he's the best player on the floor.
I mean, there are very few times where he is not. But this year, it kind of doesn't seem like it. There's times where he's just in the system, and it's like, you're not a system player. You're Jeff Teet. Like, the system is built around you. You go do whatever you want to do, and everybody will flow off of that. We need that Jeff Teet back for Ottawa to be as successful as they want to be. But time will tell if we'll get that. Saskatchewan
is 19th in the league in points this year.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Can I tell you the
10.
list of guys who are ahead of him? And tell me from the 18 guys ahead of him, which ones surprise you, which ones are like, okay, that makes sense, or yeah, should be. All right, Jeff Teet's 19, tied for 18th, Connor Kelly, 54 points. Tied for 16th, Will Malcolm, Ryan Lee with 55 points. Ty Kurtz, 15th with 56 points. Lyle Thompson is 14th with 57 points. Keegan Ball is 13th with 59 points. Tied for 11th, Jack Hanna and Holden Katoni, who are now teammates, with 60 points. Randy Stotts starts the top 10 with 63. Alex Simmons is 9th with 64. Jesse King is 8th with 67. Josh Byrne is 7th with 71. Curtis Dixon is 6th with 72. Ryan Lanchberry is 5th with 74. Connor Fields is 4th with 77. Dane Smith is 3rd with 78. Joe Resiteritz is number 2 with 81. And the points leader in the NLL right now is Mitch Jones with 82.
Lanchberry's interesting, although
he's having a great season.
He's having a great season.
Like, this is like his breakout year. There's maybe like 5 guys that I'd be like, yeah, okay, I can see that, or like that makes sense that they're ahead of Jeff based on either situation, talent, or a combination of both. The rest of them, I'm just like, Jeff, what are we doing? And that's no slight to the other guys. It's just we know what Jeff Teet's capable of, especially in the NLL.
Yeah, and especially the fact that, like, let me see something real quick. It looks like the next closest Ottawa player on the list is Dunbar, tied at 43rd.
So you have 2 guys, and Jacob Dunbar's a rookie, if I'm not mistaken, or it's his first year in Ottawa because he was with San Diego last year. So it's his first year in Ottawa.
First year with Ottawa.
And he's 43rd, and he's got 35 points.
Yep.
And then next on the list is Connor Kiernan at 54 with 31. Kyle Matisse is 56 with 30. And I'll also say this. I think part of the problem is Larson Sundown is not getting involved enough.
Yep.
We've seen Larson and Jeff be such a lethal 2-man combo. Larson has 20 points this year in 10 games. That doesn't win in the NLL when one of your best options has 20 points. Like, Ryan Terefenko has more points than Larson Sundown. That's no slight to Ryan Terefenko because he's a dog. But when a guy who is a transition player is outscoring you as a forward, that's a problem.
Well, it depends on what, where you fall in the depth chart is forward. Like, but he's a top 2 option on this team.
Mm-hmm.
He'd never be that low, ever.
He's in your top 6 offensive players that would be on the floor at any given time. You should not have 20 points on the year. And, if you're Ottawa and you're sitting here, you're currently 5-5 in a playoff spot, still sitting with a negative goal differential. You look around the landscape of the league right now and all the moves that got made this week. You're Ottawa, you got to think, what can we do? Who can we call to come and get a lethal combo player to pair with Jeff Teat right now? Because what we got going isn't working.
I mean, or you just got to figure out how to unlock, Larson and get him back involved. Like, I think a lot of teams have keyed in on like him kind of playing from behind the net. So I think that's kind of something that's been taken away, which he was phenomenal back there. Find other ways to get him the ball and put him in good positions to get back into a groove, scoring the ball, and at least getting good shots. I think that if he can get good shots, looking at the cage with lots of cage to shoot at, he'll start to dial it in. But I don't think they're really doing him any favors either with the way the offense is operating. It's very stagnant, really. There's not a lot of movement, not a lot of ball movement, and it's kind of almost what's this guy going to do this time kind of thing, and it's really starting to bite him.
Jeff Teat has 1 more point scored this year than he has turnovers.
That's terrible.
Jeff Teat leads the league in turnovers with 52. That's also part of the problem, is he's turning the ball over at an egregious clip. For reference,
like I said, I don't really think that's all on them. The way that, I don't know what changed between New York and Ottawa, but the system is not.
The coaching staff did not change.
The system
is also crazy.
Isn't working for them offensively at all, and they're not really looking to make changes either. And I think part of the problem is they're still in the playoffs. If they started right now, they're in the playoffs, and I think that's part of it. Is they don't feel like they need to change it because maybe they feel like the guys aren't executing to the level that they should because they're still right here in the playoff fight.
And if the playoffs started today, guess what? They'd get shit house and boat race out of the building in Saskatchewan.
Oh, yeah. That game wouldn't even be close.
No. I'm sure everyone's waiting for me to comment on the Wings game. There's one word. It's embarrassing. It's an embarrassing loss. You cannot lose 11-6 in Albany when Albany's been this bad. You can't lose 11-6. Now, I will say, I do think the result sparked what we saw this week in the moves that were made by the Philadelphia Wings, which we'll get into in a little bit. Because like I said last week, Scott Dominy going down cannot be the domino effect to your team just taking the piss, as my English football fans would say. You can't fall into the gutter like that with one singular player in your transition unit getting injured and being out for the year. Like that's not an excuse. You're too talented of a team to only score 6 on a team that has had a horrid defense this year. And don't get me wrong, Dougie Jameson's a phenomenal goaltender and will keep you in a lot of games as long as he can. But on the flip side, the Wings offense is talented enough to beat that bad of a defense and go one-on-one with Doug Jameson. Losing 11-6 is embarrassing. And genuinely, I'm kind of happy it happened because I think this is the wake-up call. You know, the Wings have been free falling over the last month and a half after starting 5-2. They're now 5-6. They've lost 4 out of their last 5 or 5 out of their last 6, whatever it may be. I think this was the wake-up call to be like, boys, we have way too much talent on this team to be playing this horrendously. And I'm not that I'm happy that we lost a game, but I'm happy it happened in the way that it did, because I think it's a come to terms moment, and like you have a fork in the road right now. You were sitting at 5-2, 4 wins away from tying your single season record for most wins in a season in new franchise history. And since then, you've gone down this path. And that path, for the people just listening, is this free fall. But guess what? Paul Day just used a chainsaw to chop down all the bushes that are around you and give you an exit path to get back on track with the moves he just made. Now it's in the players' hands. And it's very similar to the Philadelphia Phillies for all of our Philly listeners out there. I see this all the time, Deej, and you from the outside looking in, I would love your perspective on this because you know how talented the Phillies roster is just being around me and being a fan of baseball. Everyone thinks the Phillies did not do enough this offseason to improve after last year. Mind you, the Phillies won 95 games last year. They won the division for the first time since 2011. Did they go out sadly in the playoffs? Absolutely. But in baseball, very much like the NLL to a degree, not to the same extent because there's far more games in baseball. Baseball, the litmus test on figuring out if your team has gotten better year over year is seeing how their record improves year over year in the regular season, not what you do in the playoffs. The playoffs are such a different beast in Major League Baseball. But it's also funny that now Phillies fans are saying, oh, this team stinks. They didn't do anything to improve. They're gonna crash out and lose again, blah, blah, blah. Neglecting the fact that they went and got Jesus Luzardo, who is a phenomenal starting pitcher. They signed Max Kepler, who is a type of player they absolutely needed in this lineup. And they went and got Jordan Romano to be in the back end of the bullpen. Phenomenal pitcher. What the Philadelphia Wings have, very similar to the Philadelphia Phillies, is a loaded roster. You can only do so much with the guys that are on your team until you have to look yourself in the mirror as a player and say, it's on us now. You can only go out and spend so much money to bring in new talent and have on paper the best roster in a league. And if things aren't going right, it's on the players, it's on the coaches to look themselves in the mirror and say, okay, what are we doing wrong now? Because right now, what the Wings are doing, the players need to look themselves in the mirror and be like, what are we doing wrong? Coaches can only coach so much. The players got to execute what's being put out there. Is it the game plan? Potentially. Is it the coaching? I don't think so. This team is too talented to not be executing what these coaches have in place for them. And now it's on the players to adjust, figure things out. I'm glad with the reinforcements that are coming in. We'll talk about them in a bit. But I think those guys coming in, combined with like this wake-up call and having a bye week this week to really let this resonate and really be on your mind, like, holy shit, we just lost to one of the worst teams in the league record-wise and couldn't even put double digits up. What do we have to do to fix it? If they can't turn it around from here, I have no answer. But I think this is the wake-up call. I might look stupid, in 2 weeks when these two teams play again. But I think the Wings needed to lose a game like this for it to really set in. Like, if we don't get a hold of our season, it's going to be over before we can even fix it.
I mean, it's close. I don't think they realize how muddy this playoff picture is and how, one more loss could put them on the outside very quickly. And maybe they do know, and we're going to see a completely different team out of them this weekend when they play, Friday. Or maybe we'll see the exact same Ottawa team we've seen all season, which is the most boom or bust up or down team I've seen in the last few years in the NLL. So this is kind of their litmus test. Like if they don't win this week, things get very muddy for them very quickly.
Well, the Wings are off this week, so
sorry, I was thinking Ottawa. Sorry. I think the Wings are okay. They are in that muddy situation, but I think moves were made, and that changes things, that shakes things up, and it puts you in a much different situation than you're currently in. And they have a chance to come out favorable, in my opinion. So I think they still have a couple more weeks before hitting the panic button.
Yeah.
But I do think this is more on player execution / game plan coaching, like that side of things, than it is roster 100%.
Like you're 5-6, but 2 of your players are top 2 in points in the league. That's crazy. Rochester went into Calgary.
I just want to say, before I even get there, Saskatchewan's a fucking problem.
They're nasty, bro.
They are a goddamn problem.
They're nasty.
And nobody wants to really talk about it.
We've said it all along, and I hate that we stuttered on making them our league pass team for the pod.
We shut up. I can't actually,
but
I can't.
I knew they were going to improve. I didn't think it was going to be to this magnitude this quickly. I knew it was a process that they were going through, and I thought maybe next year was going to be the leap year. They're unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Everywhere.
In every phase.
Unbelievable everywhere. You're not 9-2 unless you're unbelievable. Look at Buffalo. They're 8-1 because they're unbelievable. They're playing like a championship favorite, not even just a contender, a favorite. I wouldn't be surprised if anybody put in a bet for the Rush to win. I'm never going to do it.
I'll tell you the odds right
Battle
now.
of the Prairies forever lives in my heart, and I'm a Roughneck fan forever. So, with all due respect, fuck the Rush. But yeah, them motherfuckers are balling right now, and it's kind of frustrating. but
pull
that
up those odds.
On the road, at home, it doesn't matter. Obviously,
I might have to put a little sprinkle on this right now, just based on the discrepancy here. The Bandits are plus 160 to win the title.
Okay.
Next best odds are the Saskatchewan Rush at plus 600.
Wow. That's it? Just 600?
Plus 600.
I thought it would be a little closer than that.
I thought it would be plus 450, plus 425, something like that. I'm going to double check another app just to compare.
Just to make sure. That's crazy.
So the Bandits are plus 165 on another app, and the Rush are plus 550 on that said app.
So I mean, not too far off.
That's crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah, they're nasty. They're a problem. They are going to be filthy the rest of the way. And if they even make a minor move at the deadline to just get depth, it just makes them that much better.
Absolutely. People need to have the Rush circled on their calendar because
we said it last week. They're in that tier right now. It's the Bandits still kind of at the top because they're they're the defending champs doing their thing. Right here, Bandits are S tier, A tier is the Rush, and then B tier is 3 through 8.
Yep. 1000%. They're playing at another level, and I really hate to see it as a Calgary fan.
Which makes the Wings win over the rush that much more impressive when it happened.
It does. It helps you guys a lot down the road. But
who's the other team they lost to?
It's actually a really good question. I don't remember.
Checking that right now.
It was not Calgary. Sad face. But yeah, while you're checking that, I believe San Diego's season might be over. Well, no. They're hanging out right behind you guys.
They lost to Toronto.
They're 5-6 as well. I know they lost to Toronto, but you talking about Saskatchewan? Yeah,
Toronto and the Wings.
But wait, what week was that they lost to Toronto?
January 18th.
Oh, that was
like a month and a half ago.
I think that might have been.
That was their first win, I think.
I think that was Schreiber's first game back. No, because Toronto won the first game of the year. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. You're right. They started 0-5. Yeah. But I think that was Schreiber's first game back, or one of his first games back. So it was a weird Toronto squad. That was
right the first win of 3 in a row.
Yeah, and everybody's like,
"Oh, are Toronto back?" I also wanted on the record.
What's happening here?
I also wanted on the record. Windy fingers. What's going on in Toronto? I want it to be known that this podcast, from the get-go, said Toronto was fucked because of the comments that their GM made. I want it known that we said that shit in November. And look at us now. That might be one of our best takes we've ever had.
I mean, we always have great takes. We're hardly ever throwing out.
That's
takes,
an elite take that we had. Everyone, Toronto's still got so much talent to be so good. Get the fuck out of here.
Despicable.
Now they're gonna spin zone it though, and they're gonna be like, they have so many first round draft picks. Oh, cool.
Who cares?
I have this box right here. It could have first round draft picks in it. It could also have giant middle fingers.
I am gonna touch on that later when I get into my spiel.
I feel so good. Felt so good seeing that fire sale go down. I was like,
There are some things. Cue
it up. Are you ready? This Toronto. This Toronto right now. This is fine.
Listen, bro.
Fuckers.
I'm gonna get into that later when we talk about those pieces. I just wanted to touch on San Diego's season possibly being over before.
Is it?
It's not, because they're hanging out right behind you guys, but
they do, and they have the tiebreaker over us.
But they don't look good. And it's they lose a couple more games, they're in dangerous territory.
I'll say they did look good against Buffalo again. That was a very close game.
I think that's they're in that same situation as Toronto, where they're playing up to Buffalo because it's Buffalo. Buffalo gets everybody's hardest game because they're Buffalo. They looked good, but why aren't you looking that good against anybody else? You're star-studded San Diego. Do your job.
Well, we've talked about it. Not having Trevor. Not saying that's an excuse, but that's been a huge issue for sure. And we talked about it preseason when they brought in Ben McIntosh, Rob Hellier, and why am I blanking on his name? Homie that played in Halifax, Ryan Benesh, to be the next big three trio to try to figure out the puzzle piece. We said there was going to be issues because you're bringing in 3 new pieces on this offense again, and there's no consistency there.
And at least the last time you did it, there were 2 guys in that trio that
played together
and have very good chemistry together. You brought 3 random guys together. They have to learn each other and how they like to play and all those things.
And you paired them with another guy that played with them, with Wes Berg. Those 3 played together in Calgary. They know each other. That was bound to have some sort of success. It just never came to fruition in the playoffs.
Exactly. Very different than what you're getting now and in this group. So that's the part that concerns me, is this offense is not helping the defense out. The defense is playing a lot, and the goalie's having to see a lot of rubber, and Origlieri's doing a good job, but he can only save so many. And they're just kind of putting him in a position where he's got to stand on his head every night, and it's just not enough. And then there's Calgary,
which I think, in similar vein to what I said about the Wings, this loss sparked the move you made.
Dog. My sports teams. They're taking every bit of my soul out of me. How do we lose to Rochester?
They're not
that Rochester is that bad, but
they're
like,
not a bad team.
Dog. We're in the playoff. We're in the playoffs. Like we're actually low key. Like with that, if we win last weekend, like we still we put pressure on Saskatchewan to but we're not far enough behind to where like they don't feel pressured about their spot possibly being taken. Like we're still 2 games behind. We're right there, and we played less games than them, so we still would have had time to catch up. This loss hurts because it's Rochester, dog. It's
fine. Because guess what? This move prompted
not.
change. It prompted change. And we talked about it last week with Calgary. The goaltending has been a problem. No matter how you want to dice it up, Christian Del Bianco not playing and the front office being too stubborn to put out trade packages and try to send them to Vancouver, and knowing that you had that in your back pocket, but being too stubborn to send him there to get pieces back, thinking that Vancouver you had the leverage. You can turn down any package and get whatever package you want. That was problem number 1. And that's no problem on Christian Del Bianco's front. That's the front office of Calgary's front.
Yep.
Number 2, going in without a suitable veteran presence until this past week behind an inexperienced Cam McLeod is organizational malpractice. Goalies matter so much in this league. And that, I'm not trying to take shots at Cam. I think he's got a bright future in the league. He's just very inexperienced from starting week in and week out. And to not have somebody there to be a buffer in case of emergency when you could have got Koa Abrams on the street weeks ago and you waited until last week to go get him, granted, it helped you land the big fish that you got, is crazy to me. And that's where the inconsistencies were, because the offense is talented. The transition game is playing phenomenally, which we thought could have been a problem with Zach Courier's departure, but Justin Inacio has stepped his game up to another level. It's the back end that has been an issue. More important, more focus point, the goaltending. I think this is a wake-up call for Calgary, too, to be like, okay, we've exhausted all internal options. We need to go and do something because we're talented enough to go on a run. And that's where I think, yes, it sucks to lose, but sometimes you need that kick in the ass to be like, okay, what do we have to do to fix our issues? And I think this loss prompted that.
We shouldn't have needed a loss for that.
For sure.
I think I'm just very frustrated with the front office of my favorite sports teams are just awful. Oh my God. Can we just get new people in there that are going to be just decent human beings that are going to just not going to make me be like this? Like you said, we should have traded Christian Del Bianco in the first place. And if we weren't going to do that, we should have went and got Koa Abrams a long time ago. Instead, we decided to somehow wheel our way to a decent season before making a bonkers trade that actually could end up being one of the worst things that happens to the franchise. Which I can't wait to get into.
Yeah, it was a crazy week that culminated in quite the week of trades. But before we talk about them, our NLL recap brought to you by our friends over at Buff. I know it was a long-winded segment there for everybody, but guess what? Buff is here to protect you in these cold weather times. But Deej, I don't know what it's like in Michigan, but this week it finally felt like we were breaking through. And it was like that first taste of what it's going to be like oh so soon. It was 62 degrees today. And I was just like, wow, how much I miss this weather.
Why was it warmer for y'all than it was for us? We got up to like 54.
It was
which
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday were just beautiful.
That's fantastic. Getting up to 54 this week was fantastic.
There's such a difference between 54 in February versus 54 in like November.
Yes.
It's a parallel difference.
Complete difference.
But guess what? Buff is still there for you in case it gets cold. And they've got the baseball caps. They've got plenty of stuff to keep your head protected from the sunshine, just like they have for your face and your head to keep you protected from the cold. Wednesday, Survivor Season 48 is here. So you already know them. Survivor buffs are available now at Buff on their website. Use our link in the description. Shop those new Survivor Season 48 buffs and all the stuff Buff has to offer to keep you protected from the wind, the sun, and the snow, and the cold. Again, use our link in the description and shop Buff today. Deej, week 14 is here, which also means new players in new places. A lot of trades went down this week in the National Lacrosse League. Pulling up the total list here because there's also a lot of rumors swirling around, and it is absolutely crazy. But the first trade, our good pal Adam Levy reported on it before it became official. The Toronto Rock have traded Nick Rose, Tyler Hendricks, and their 4th-round pick in the 2025 entry draft to the Calgary Roughnecks in exchange for Goa Abrams, Robert Hudson, and the Calgary Roughnecks' first-round selection in the 2026 entry draft. Deej, big boy Nick Rose is on your squad. Back where it all began, pretty much. How we feeling about the new goaltender for the Calgary Roughnecks? The boy, Nick Rose. You now get to root for him.
Nick, I love you. It's great that you're on my squad, and I get to cheer for you. You're going to be in between the pipes stopping shots for my squad. So now I won't be angry when you make saves. I'll be happy. But this move scares me. There is zero things stopping Nick Rose from re-signing with the Toronto Rock at the end of the season.
Which is crazy that is like a thing.
Zero things. Do you hear me? Zero. I'm happy because this tells me we just jumped from a playoff team to a championship contender with one move. I'm scared because why are we making such a move to be a championship contender? And I say that not as a fan that doesn't want to see his team win a championship, because don't get me wrong, we can go out and win a championship this year and not win one for another 3 or 4 years, and I'll still be the happiest fan on the planet. But that makes me question Curtis Dixon, Dane Doby. How long are these guys going to stick around? Are they about to call it quits at the end of the year? And is that why we're making these kind of moves for our last hoorah? And then this team's going to be a shell of itself for how many years?
I wouldn't say you'd be a shell of yourself. You still have a lot of young talent that's like very good between Jesse King and his prime.
Hold on. Yes, Have you watched the Calgary Roughnecks game this year?
Yes, in person, actually.
We are a shell when them boys don't do nothing.
Sure, but that's just how the team is constructed right now. Like, those are the focal points because they're there.
That's fine, but I need somebody to do a little something. Like, okay, hold on. Outside my boy Cookie, I'm not feeling confident. We get a little spark from Simp here and there.
Jesse King's in the top 20 in scoring.
We're not talking about Jesse King.
But you said outside of Cookie, you don't feel
he not there. We talking about the young talent. Jesse King, we know what we getting with Jesse King. We know what we get with Kinger. Kinger's a roughneck for life. I'm not worried about him. He's probably going to be on the bench even when he ain't supposed to be.
Tyler Pace?
But Pacer be disappearing sometimes. Hayden Dixon disappears sometimes. Like, not that I don't think they're good, just what are we actually going to be without two of our biggest producers? Like, this wasn't as much of a concern because we had Zach Currier when they left last time. We don't. Like, Zach Currier is like a cure-all fix. Like, if Zach Currier is on my team, I have no concerns. Things will be figured out.
But I do think part of this trade that's getting so overlooked, and it should not be, is Tyler Hendricks is a fucking animal.
I'm cool with everything coming in.
I'm just saying in general, like, everyone obviously focal point, Nick Rose, future Hall of Famer coming into a team. 100%. Tyler Hendricks in the transition game, not saying he's like Zach Currier reincarnated, but he's something that this team has not had this year that's going to improve your transition game. And I think he's more of an in-between of what Currier and Shane Simpson have been over the years for the Roughnecks, and he's younger. My boy was born in 2001. He's a post 9/11 baby. Okay, he
might have been right before.
He can't remember. He can't never forget because he don't remember. He was born November 1st, 2001.
Okay, he was in fact after.
He don't remember. But he's a beast. And, you know, to have a 6'3", 213-pound guy going in the transition game for you, I think a lot of people are overlooking that part where you're bringing in, like, a difference maker in the transition game, which has been not a problem because J.I. has been so good to get the possessions, but outside of that, it's been, you know, the scale balancing one way or the other. There's been no, like, consistency. I think Tyler Hendricks brings a lot of consistency to that transition game. And I think smart trade for the Rock. You get a first-round pick. You offload Nick Rose, who's going to be an unrestricted free agent, can decline the franchise tag, sure. Also, on the flip side, smart trade for the Roughnecks because you have talent to go and win. Like that, there's no debating that. Like, the Roughnecks have the talent to go and win and go on a run, make some noise in the playoffs, and potentially pull upsets that get you to an NLL Finals. You bring in a goalie, which has been a problem. You bring in a young Tyler Hendricks for the transition game, and you gave up one first-round pick that is sandwiched in between the two loaded drafts of 2025 and 2027. Those two drafts, in my opinion, are far more valuable to have picks in than 2026 right now. So at the end of the day, sure, is getting a goalie who is a rental not the greatest thing in the world to a degree, but again, it's Nick Rose. And I think the Roughnecks defense has looked great in moments this year. And I've seen it in person in front of a goalie in Cam McLeod who's not as good as Nick Rose. And that's no slight to Cam McLeod. It's Nick Rose. So I think you couple those two things together, plus Justin Inaccio's getting you possessions to go to that talented offense that is 6 deep. I do think this is a net positive for both teams, but in the short term, it's a great move for the Roughnecks.
My thing is, yeah, short term, great. I'm just concerned about the implications of long term because
I don't think they're that horrible. Like, you gave up 1 first-round draft pick.
All I'm gonna say is,
Which in my book, you're giving up the first-round pick for Tyler Hendricks. That's how I view it.
But also, the way I see this is, if we win a championship this year, I don't care.
Right, and that's how you have to approach it.
I don't. But if we don't, and Nick Rose leaves and these other dudes retire, I'm like going to be sliding down the wall. Just because I don't know what my team's going to look like. We could come out and be the best thing ever, and then I'm going to be waxing poetic about how good we are, and I'm going to say I'm sorry 1,000 times over because I doubted them. Or we could come out and prove everything that I'm saying right now, and then I'm going to be still sliding down the wall with actual tears coming out of my eyes.
I think this is it. Looking more and more at this, because you also got that 4th-round pick in 2025, and I know it's draft picks, they're unknowns, sure. I think by a margin, the Roughnecks won this trade.
I'm being irrationally pessimistic right now. So, like, you're not going to convince me that we won. You're just not. Because I'm thinking of the worst possible scenario, which is we don't win a championship. Nick Rose leaves and re-signs with Toronto.
You also got to think Nick Rose
and Curtis Dixon retire.
You also have to think Nick Rose is 37. And I'm not saying, like, this is, like, Nick Rose's last ride. But, like, it's completely plausible that if he wants to hang him up at the end of the year, too, like, could be a thing.
That's fine. Like, I'm not saying him leaving is, like, a terrible thing, but, like, it kind of is.
But I mean, at the end of the day, too,
I need
the overall goal for a team is to win a championship. And the Calgary Roughnecks front office just put the Calgary Roughnecks in a optimal position to go and win a championship this year. Because at the end of the day, sure, you have years and years afterwards to pay attention to, but right now, the 2024-2025 season's the objective, and you're trying to win a championship now. And
yeah,
they did make a move that puts you in the driver's seat to be in the championship contender discussion, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, that part I have no gripes with. I just don't want a horrible fallout on the back end.
In addition to the Roughnecks making a trade, the Philadelphia Wings made some trades. Our two teams just love making headlines. In a series of 2 deals, the Toronto Rock traded Mitch DeSnew and Chris Corbeil to the Philadelphia Wings in exchange for the Wings' first-round pick in 2025's entry draft. Hachi Machi, what a fleece job by Paul Day. What a fleece job. Sure, 2025 loaded draft. Sure, Toronto has 3 first-round picks in the 2025 draft. Do you realize, like, on any given week, either of those players could have gone for a first-round pick to another team? And Paul Day got both of them for 1 singular first-round pick? That's a great move to add championship pedigree. And quite frankly, Mitch DeSnew and Chris Corbeil automatically become the 2 best defensemen in this era of Philadelphia Wings lacrosse to put on a Wings jersey. There have never been 2 better defensemen to play for this team than those 2 guys. I was over the moon that we did not have to give up a single player to get either of them. 1 singular draft pick. Like I've said, draft picks are great for team building and everything. But you look at the Wings right now, they're loaded across the board. Drafting Brendan O'Neill was almost a luxury last year. The Wings are trying to win a championship. The hope is that 2025 first-round pick is the last pick in the draft. To get 2 championship-caliber defensemen to come into this locker room that desperately needs championship pedigree and just a spark of life, I cannot wait to watch those boys suit up for the Philadelphia Wings on March 8th against the Albany Firewolves. You're going to have grit, tenacity, just nasty defensive play to pair with Liam Patton, Alex Pace, Connor Sellers, Ryan Wagner, and Anthony Joachim. With those two in front of Nick Damute as well, I love this. Might be one of the best moves Paul Day's made. And I understand both of them are rentals technically because they're signed through the end of the season. But also on the flip side, this gets them in the building now so that if you do feel inclined and it feels optimal on both fronts, you re-sign them. You get them integrated into the culture of this team now rather than waiting until the summer. This is a Paul Day masterclass move. Love this deal so much. Like, it's not going to top the Taggart Clark for a first-round pick that inevitably became Brennan O'Neill, because that was just like 4D vision from Paul Day. But this move is unbelievable. And I was stunned that all it took was one first-round pick to get these two guys on the squad. And then in addition to that, the Philadelphia Wings traded Holden Cattoni in a 1-for-1 player swap for your former boy, Shane Simpson. Hello, Scott Dominey replacement. Thank Christ. I loved Holden Cattoni. Amazing player. But genuinely, he was injured last year for a majority of the year, and it was a damper on the offense without him there. This year, he's been awesome, but it also feels like he is the similar type of player to what Blaze Reardon does, to what Brennan O'Neill does, and you need a little diversity of player skill set on the offense. So to go and exchange that ticket in for a player of Shane Simpson's caliber, to bring in a guy in the transition game who can get up and down the floor, move the ball for you, this is a huge facelift at the mid-season point to bring in three players like that to kind of shake up what's been stagnant, to put it lightly. But these two moves are grade A, KB approved. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Wings fan and I want to see them succeed. I think to get Shane Simpson, Chris Corbeil, and Mitch DeSnew in exchange for a first-round pick and Holden Cattoni is unbelievable trade craftsmanship from Paul Day.
Sorry, Michigan ended the game on a 22-8 run and hit a buzzer beater 3 for the win. And I just saw all of that. So, but no, that was a fantastic job to go out and get exactly what they needed. They needed help in transition and defense. Their offense has kind of been fine. They've scored 15 goals multiple times this year, and it's an offense that can create for themselves. Two of their top scorers are checks notes again, 1 and 2 in the league for points. So the offense isn't struggling, but the defense isn't quite doing enough, and transition could definitely help, especially without a true faceoff guy. So you need help. They went out and got help in both those areas. And to me, it screams that this iteration of the Wings is ready to actually make that push into being a consistent perennial playoff team that's going to start fighting for championships, because they're starting to put a lot of those pieces in place. And I mean, you look at where they stand right now. I mean, they're in the thick of the playoffs. Like, they're not even in the hunt. They're in the thick of the playoffs. And they're just, every game's a playoff game at this point. So you got to make these kind of moves to put yourself in a position to be a top 8 team when May comes.
Yeah, I mean, amazing moves across the board that had to be made. And you look at some of the other moves that are being rumored. Zed Williams goes on the injured reserve list this week. Not season ending, but now there's rumors swirling around that potentially Tom Schreiber could wind up in Colorado, which would be quite the move for the Colorado Mammoth to go and get Captain America and bring him home, not necessarily to his hometown, but bring him to his namesake. Let's play a little lacrosse multiverse here. Thinking about a team that, when fully healthy, consists of Tom Schreiber, Zed Williams, Connor Kelly, Ryan Lee, Connor Robinson, Eli McLaughlin. That is also a very fun prospect to think about.
I mean, that team's going to be fun.
Whether or not they get Tom Schreiber. Like, they're still fun now, but if you add Tom Schreiber to that mix, like, that bumps them up, from where they are in terms of separating themselves from the pack. And I know we still have about like a week and a half until the trade deadline, which is on March 10th. But that would be one of those where were you moments in lacrosse. No matter what style of lacrosse it is, to see Tom Schreiber get traded would be pretty jarring.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's one of those players that you hold on to for as long as you can, and that he would be a player that would either retire or leave in free agency, not someone that you would go, you're not really fitting our mold right now.
You're an unrestricted free agent? See ya.
You'll be back. Bold. That is a bold strategy to play, my guy.
Very. But yeah, before we preview the week, Toronto. We tried to tell y'all they were fucked. They are off this week, but now all of the nerds are hyping up the fact that Jamie Dowick has so many draft picks, and this is just genius business by Jamie Dowick to go and acquire all these draft picks. Jamie Dowick doesn't care about winning. We said this in November when he made those comments on Lacrosse Classified, talking about the CBA. Jamie Dowick does not care about winning. And it's hilarious that he's come out and said that he wouldn't own the team if he didn't care about winning. Buddy, you just traded off every single piece because you're having one down year, which also tells me you're kind of signaling a changing of the guard and you're just going in a younger direction, which is fine. But you were 2 games away from the NLL finals last year. You had the best record in the NLL last year. And you're 3-8, and you just wave the white flag at the midway point. To me, that's disaster class. Like, you signal to your fan base, to your players, and to me, I don't know how you feel about this, and I know it's different than the NBA or the NFL and stuff like that. Not necessarily NFL, but NBA and things of that nature, where if a guy gets traded, can come back in free agency, whatever. To me, if you're a player in free agency, you see the comments about the CBA, you see the comments about how it's going to be World War III. And then at the midway point of the season, because things aren't going your way because of injuries, poor play, whatever, team is 3-8, and they say, oh, you're an unrestricted free agent, we're going to ship you off. What free agent in the NLL, with the NLL's free agency structure, where you can't become a free agent until you're 30, wants to go to a team like that? I'll tell you right now, if I was playing in the NLL and I hit free agency, Toronto's off my list from the beginning, because that does not sound like a team that has a front office culture that is welcoming to players.
Also, what he said, in the summer.
Right. Like that's the first ultimate red flag. But then you see players getting shipped off now because one season doesn't go your way. Now it's time to have a changing of the guard and flip things on their heads. If I'm a free agent next summer, pending CBA things, who in their right mind is signing with Toronto? They need all these draft picks because I don't think any player is going to want to go there.
It's not looking good. I'll tell you that much. It's an uphill battle for them at this point, in my opinion. But I'm also not a professional athlete in the National Lacrosse League, so.
But like, if you put yourself in those shoes, just as a person, making a life decision, you wouldn't sign in Toronto if that was the case.
No, I wouldn't. Absolutely not. I wouldn't feel like I matter more than.
I would feel like an asset more than a person.
I just feel like numbers.
Right.
Ridiculous.
We tried to tell everyone.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
So all the nerds are like, oh, they got so many draft picks. Shut the fuck up.
Please.
I have draft picks right here. Look at all these draft picks, Deej. It's the same thing. They're unknown.
Bro,
look at all these draft picks.
Ass.
Look at all these draft picks. Look, I'm going to pull them out of my ass. Oh, found another one.
Ass, bro.
Found another one. Oh, look, more draft picks. Oh, pulled them out of thin air. Oh, out of thin air. Look, oh.
You know what? Late night OTB is back.
Oh, what's that? Oh, draft pick.
I said you're not wrong though. Like that's kind of how it is with draft picks.
They are unknown commodities. Plus,
Sometimes.
half of them in the NLL won't even play next year because they're still going to be in college.
I think we're ending that. Yeah, I don't know why it's set up like that. That's so weird.
Insane.
Like, let them be seniors and then draft them so you can actually just have them.
Absurd. Shall we preview the upcoming games?
Hey, it's a little bit shorter of a week.
It is brought to you by our awesome merch partners at PHI Apparel Company. Guys, you want to rep OTB? PHI Apparel Company is the place to do it. They've got the official OTB hoodie, OTB shirts, Underground Sports Philadelphia shirts and hoodies. All of our podcasts have merch at PHI Apparel Company. Plus, if you're a Philly sports fan, you can rep your favorite Philly sports team, Philly-centric merch as well. Go to phiapparel.co, and when you go to checkout, use code UNDERGROUND, and you will get 10% off your next merch order from our friends at PHI Apparel Company. Again, that's 10% off, code UNDERGROUND at phiapparel.co, and stand out in the crowd with PHI Apparel Company. I also want to bring this up before we preview the games. We do have a voicemail, which you can leave us a voicemail at speakpipe.com/OTBLaxPod. Get your takes, your thoughts, all that good stuff off on the voicemail line. It's open 24/7, 365. Speakpipe.com/OTBLaxPod. Our boy Aiden from the Boston Battery left us a voicemail, and I'm sure I haven't even screened the voicemail. I wanted a pure reaction here, and I'm sure it's him going belt to ass on me about the Wings losing to Albany, but here is Aiden's voicemail.
What's up? It's Aiden from the Battery. Didn't get to call in last week with the craziness of travel, but just wanted to, say Boston, back-to-back champs, double champs, men's and women's side, Cannons looking like the Kings of Sixes. Yeah, fantastic weekend. I hope you guys, I know you guys were there for the Cannons Atlas game, that semifinal. Was going absolutely ballistic in the stands. So so thrilled I got.
Let me try this again. OTB at night. Deej couldn't hear the voicemail. So here is Aiden's voicemail, and hopefully you can hear it. if it wants to start playing. What the fuck?
Try it again.
Yeah, it's still loading.
Oh, it's loading.
OTB at night never fails. Deej couldn't hear it on audio. We pulled it up in video form to share the screen, so hopefully Deej can hear it now. Here is Aiden's voicemail.
What's up? It's Aiden from the Battery. Didn't get to call in last week with the craziness of travel, but just wanted to, say Boston, back-to-back champs, double champs, men's and women's side, Cannons looking like the kings of sixes. Yeah, fantastic weekend. I hope I know you guys were there for the Cannons Atlas game, that semifinal. Was going absolutely ballistic in the stands. So thrilled I got to see that in person, see you guys in person. And yeah, see the Cannons take a couple titles. Also, Kyle, sorry to mention it, but did see my Firewolves manage to get a rare win this year against your Wings. So we'll see if that winds up mattering in the playoffs or if the Firewolves are done. But good week or so for my lacrosse teams.
Note to self: put in this clip that I'm going to make. Put in the Adam Schefter assault tweet, because that's what that was. Aiden, thanks for the ricochet shot. Yeah, Kings of Sixes, bold take, but hey, can't knock the two-time defending champions. They earned this one in particular for sure, with all the injuries they had, and Firewolves. Yeah, we're on to Firewolves at home. I'll say that.
I do just want to say I did say the Cannons would repeat.
You did.
So I was on your side with that one, Aiden.
We've been very pinpoint on at least getting the teams that will play in the finals in the PLL Champ Series.
Yes.
Every single we picked Chrome to win in unison. I had the Water Dogs winning. They got to the final. I forget who you picked to win last year off the top of my head.
It was either Cannons or Archers.
And then you had Cannons and I had the Archers this year. We know ball, some say.
But we're not allowed to say that. We're not allowed to say that we know ball.
We can't get nominated for the Tom Borelli Media Person of the Year award. Just saying, we know ball. But people would like to see it. Just saying. But let's get to the preview of the week. We've got short week, just 5 games. 2 games on Friday, 3 on Saturday. Georgia at Ottawa on Friday at 7 Eastern. Albany at Rochester also at 7 Eastern on Friday. Then on Saturday, game of the year to this point, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Buffalo Bandits at the Saskatchewan Rush.
Well, it should be game of the year. There's already been a game of the year, but this one could easily top that.
This could be scenes. I think this could easily be one of the best lacrosse games we see all year in the NLL. Then at 9 Eastern, the debut of Nick Rose for the Calgary Roughnecks. Sources are saying at the Colorado Mammoth, hoots on the ground type game. And then at 10 Eastern, the Halifax Thunderbirds travel to Vegas to take on the Desert Dogs. What stands out to you for week 5, Deej? Or week 14 out of these 5, I should say.
Obviously, we just talked about possibly game of the year. That's obviously one that I will be keeping circled and looking forward to watching. Anytime Lyle Thompson steps on the floor, I'm looking forward to watching him play lacrosse. So definitely want Lyle Thompson to be on my screen Friday night. And then I'm interested to see what kind of Jeff Teat we get that night too. It may be one of those nights where he shows up because Lyle Thompson is on the other side of the floor, or he could be the Jeff Teat we've seen most of the year. And then the only other game I'm looking forward to is Nick Rose's debut, hopefully, as we've heard. And Calgary coming out with a win is what I need, but there's no guarantees. But those are kind of the three games I'm really looking at this weekend.
I mean, I'm looking at this from the lens of everything we've been talking about for the past 2-3 weeks. The trend could easily continue itself here with the road teams dominating the weekend again. I think the only one that really comes into question overall is Albany at Rochester, but you never know. Albany just fucking won a game last week. But I mean, also on the flip side of things, Buffalo, Saskatchewan, that could go either way because of how dominant both of those teams have been. But the rest of them, like, you could tell me those road teams win Georgia, Calgary, Halifax, and I'd be like, yeah, that checks out. Like
100%.
It's crazy that that's where the league is right now, and it's not a bad thing. It's just wild the road teams are that dominant. I am going to pull Hoots' tweet up again to take a look at the
specific records for
these teams that are on the road. So Buffalo's 4-0 on the road this year. They are the road team in this one. Georgia is 4-1 on the road. Calgary's 4-2 on the road. Albany is a league worst 1-4 on the road. Definitely something to consider. And then Halifax is 3-2 on the road. So outside of Albany, the other teams are all above 500 on the road this season, which definitely something to pay attention to as we go into this week. I mean, Buffalo, Saskatchewan, like the Wings are off this week, and I will have that game on Saturday night glued to my television. Calgary, Colorado is going to be absolute scenes. They always play tough against one another. Something I'm interested in, I know Halifax 3-2 on the road, Vegas coming off a win, seeing how they respond at home coming off a win, but also I feel like Halifax doesn't typically play these late night games like this. It's really only when they go and play Saskatchewan out in Saskatchewan. And even then, I feel like those are like 9 o'clock starts more so Eastern time. 10 Eastern time for Halifax to go effectively cross country if you're basing it US wise, because Halifax is an hour ahead of East Coast time where they are located. I think it's like Meridian time or something like that. To go to Vegas, that's a long flight. So that's definitely something I'm like intrigued about to see how they kind of play. But I mean, we get Lyle Thompson against Jeff Teat this week. Good Lord.
Grab the popcorn.
Good.
Because that's going to be a fantastic game. It's going to be a fantastic game. Georgia doesn't like to play in blowouts. So it's going to be a good game.
I'm also like pumped to watch Connor Farrell and Jake Naso go to war.
That's probably the best part about that game. Everything else is still exciting, but that is probably the best part about that game.
And seeing how Buffalo's defense handles Mike Triolo, like that's going to be a matchup inside the game to watch. How Saskatchewan's defense game plans for Josh Byrne and Dane. That game is just you want a top tier
and I think
viewing experience. Turn that game on.
Like Triolo is a big deal, but I think Zach Mance is really the
100%.
I think he's the real energy piece. When he's going, that team starts buzzing.
Those two for sure are
you have to put a cap on Zach Mance. I think like you can let Triolo get off a little bit, but like you can't let Zach Mance get off. Like just the energy that the team gets when he's feeling good about himself is just too good. You got to put a cap on him. You can let just about anybody else have a day. Zach Mance can't.
I want to see if Saskatchewan's like website shows. Because then on top of it, like Ryan Keenan, Robert Church, like but like Triolo has been like the spark, I think, for like unlocking a lot with Zach Mance, because Zach Mance can almost be a feeder and has been able to rack up assists on Triolo goals this year. I'd have to get the specifics there, but like he's been, I mean, he's fucking 6'8", 229. Like you got that behemoth running at you. Like I'm just so intrigued to see like who's the primary defender on Triolo from Buffalo. Something tells me it's going to be
Steve Priolo.
I don't know if they'll put
or do you think Spanger?
I want to pull up Buffalo real quick and take a look at their overall roster. I was almost thinking Cam Wires because Cam's 6'5", 220. You can almost like go size for size, where like, you know, Priolo, yeah, it might be Steve. I didn't realize Steve was that tall. Steve's 6'5", 227. I don't know why I thought Steve was like 6'2", 6'3". It could be Steve. One of those two, or Paul Dawson.
Yeah.
Another 6'5", 237 behemoth. Why did I not realize every defenseman on the Buffalo Bandits is 6'5"?
Dude, they're huge.
Insane. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. I'm looking at their defenseman heights. They're all 6'5" on the dot. That's insane. Like Zach Belter, 6'5". Priolo, 6'5".
Why do you think it's so hard to tell them all apart?
I feel bad for Justin Martin.
Like if you can't see a jersey number, you don't know who's playing defense for Buffalo. They all look like the same person.
I feel bad for Justin Martin. He's 5'11".
Hey,
justice for my medium-sized king.
No justice. He stands out amongst everyone else. He is special.
Like Paul Dawson, 6'5". Cam Wires, 6'5". That's insane. Dylan Robinson, 6'2". He's a short king amongst men.
Facts.
But that game is going to be must-see TV. Can't wait for it. And then, potential debut for Nick Rose, from what the Screets are saying, and potentially debut for Colton Catoni for Vegas, which I think is like a huge move for Vegas to go and get a player of Holden's caliber in that trade with the Wings for Shane Simpson. Like, to put Holden Catoni on that roster with Jack Hanna, the way Patra's been playing this year, Donville, like, you get that veteran presence that I think they've been lacking since Hellier left to go to San Diego. I think that's and he's different from the rest of the guys. And now you have two like big body, physical type of forwards with Jack and Holden. I think that's going to be fun to watch with those two on the floor, to couple with Donville, to put with Patra. I think Holden's going to only elevate Patra's game that much more because Holden can distribute so well. Like, we had a 9-assist game for Holden Catoni earlier this year with the Wings. So I think that's only going to elevate what Patra is going to be capable of. And he's unbelievable, like Rookie of the Year candidate in my book.
I mean, he's having a phenomenal season. He's on pace to do something that a lot of players haven't done, something that a rookie has never done. Only 4 other players has done what he's on pace to do statistically. So he's off to a great start. And when you pair that with certain players, things tend to boom. So it's going to be interesting to see what role Catoni takes in that offense and how it flourishes around him, or maybe it doesn't. We really don't know what it's going to look like until we see it out on the floor. But there's very high potential for what the offense could turn into with Catoni coming over.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's going to be a wild week of full-fledged, unadulterated box lacrosse, only on Spike TV. Just kidding. That would be the promo.
The kids don't even know about Spike TV. Spike was diff.
Now it's our good friends at Paramount Plus.
Facts.
Spike TV was different. That was like
Yes.
that's the man channel.
And I had no business watching that at like 8 years old.
Only on Spike TV. That was your fucking Bar Rescue, Ink Master, just fucking 12
1,000 Ways
hours
to
on a
Die.
Saturday. Just put that on. It was marathons.
Yeah, 1,000 Ways to Die, Fear Factor, like just
Oh,
total BS.
You're gonna eat this cockroach for $25. I can't do it, Joe.
Joe, I'm absolutely terrified of snakes. Well, guess what, honey?
You're gonna be in a coffin full of king
We're
cobras.
We're gonna put you in this coffin and we're gonna drop 50 king cobras on top of you and tell you to get out. Well, actually, no. We're gonna have your partner over here swim to the bottom of this little nasty pond over here and unlock the key using some crazy combination of codes.
And what's that pond? Oh, it's filled with horse shit.
Horse shit. Dude, I'm terrified of horse shit.
Come on in, guys. We're our next challenge for $250,000. You're gonna walk a tightrope across the Grand Canyon.
I'm so scared of heights. Dude. They literally used to have people tell them their biggest fears and then literally put them in that scenario.
And then the reason that show got canceled is the wildest thing ever.
I never knew. I assumed people just stopped wanting to go on there because they realized how stupid it was.
Yeah, because the one episode that did them in, them boys were drinking donkey you know what.
I missed that episode.
Another name for members of the Navy.
I'm glad I missed that episode.
That was like the one that did them in.
Oh my God.
It was like a fucking like picture of it. I don't think the episode like ever aired, but that was like it was filmed and everything, and then wild.
I can't believe they did that.
Right.
Like, bro, huh? You didn't say no?
Absurd.
Like, you would have just had to send me home.
The one that sticks in my
money.
brain is when they ate the bull testicle. That's the Fear Factor episode that everyone remembers. Because those things were the size of somebody's head.
That is so fucking crazy.
Insane. Yeah. Leave a comment in the comment section if you remember Spike TV.
Deranged comment of the week.
Let's get to our picks. Head on over to the pick pond, feed some ducks, and dish out our NLL Week 14 picks of the week. Powered by Kenwood Beer, the official beer partner of Underground Sports Philadelphia. It's a refreshing light beer, just 4.1% ABV, 120 calories, just 8 grams of carbs. Go to kenwoodbeer.com, use the Kenny Finder to see who's got Kenwood Beer on tap in the Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Maryland, New Jersey, and Delaware areas. You can also find Kenwood Beer at your local liquor stores in those markets. Again, that's kenwoodbeer.com. Must be 21 or older to do so. And please drink responsibly. Deej, last week, not the most ideal of weeks, but it could have been worse. You had picked Ottawa, Colorado, Saskatchewan, Georgia, Philadelphia, Calgary, and Buffalo, which puts you at 0-1, 0-2, 1-2, 2-2, 2-3, 2-4, 3-4 on the week. And I picked Halifax, Colorado, Saskatchewan, Georgia, Philly, Calgary, San Diego, which also put me at 3-4 on the week. So you are sitting going into this week at 43 and 32. And I am 36 and 39. So we start Georgia, Ottawa, Lyle Thompson, Jeff Teat, Zach Higgins, Brett Dobson. I'm going Georgia Swarm because their offense is more prolific, plain and simple.
I'm going Georgia Swarm because they're positive on the road this year. And,
that
Lyle
too.
Thompson. Lyle Thompson, Brett Dobson. Pretty good.
Pretty good. We move to Albany at Rochester. How you feeling about the Battle of Upstate New York?
Do I have to pick this? I don't trust anybody to do anything. But I think I trust Albany to lose on the road a little more than I trust Rochester to not lose at home. Because they're 1-4 on the road. Like, dude, you're doing the opposite of what everybody in this league is doing. Figure it out. Sorry, Aiden, but I'm going with Rochester.
Yeah, I'm going with Rochester too. It's the league pass team. Albany's a league worst 1-4 on the road this year. If Rochester loses here, tough scene. Might put one of the nails in their coffin to end their season and put them at 5-8, but I think they figure it out and kind of weasel their way back into the playoff discussion with a win here. So I'm going Rochester as well. Game of the week, 8 p.m. Eastern time in Saskatoon, eh? The Rush host the Bandits. Bandits are 4-0 this season on the road. The Rush are 4-1 at home. Tough game to pick.
Saskatchewan's actually good at home.
They're so good at home. But the Bandits are also so good on the road. Obviously.
I literally just want to scream because I don't have a pick. And I don't want to make the wrong pick. A 5-0 week this week would be glorious. I'm going to go with Buffalo because they're Buffalo.
I picked against Buffalo last week when they were on the road. They almost proved me right. They pulled it out at the end. I am going to go Buffalo, not basing it on the home road situation. I'm basing it on the depth of talent that Buffalo has on the offensive side of the ball. And not that Saskatchewan doesn't have talent. I just think Buffalo's deeper. When you look Josh Byrne, Dane Smith, Kluch, Tahoka, Chase Frazier, the way Ian McKay is playing offensively this season is through the roof. I think when you look at just the overall depth of talent, along with the fucking monster defense that they have, and Matt Vince greater than signed Frank Giuliano. No slight to the tank, but Matt Vince is a legend, and he's continuing to play out of his mind into his 40s. I'm going to go Buffalo, but I do hope that this game is close.
I want the game to be as close as possible. Need as many fireworks as possible. OT would be actually fantastic.
Then we go to 9 Eastern in Colorado. The Mammoth hosting your Roughnecks, Deej. The potential debut of a new goaltender who has played in Colorado this year. That is something to use as a benefactor. But you as a defender in your lacrosse days, how difficult, indifferent is it for a defense playing in front of a new goalie that you've never played with?
Only hard when he's not good. Like transitioning from goalies is only a detriment. Not necessarily a detriment to your game, but like it only gets in your head. You only think about it, you only overcompensate when that goalie is not as good as the goalie you're used to being behind. It's almost like a breath of fresh air and a little bit of a relaxation for you as a defender if you know, if I do my job, this goalie back here is going to make the save. And that's kind of where Calgary is stepping into. Is it's not the situation of, is this goalie going to make the save? It's Nick Rose is back there. If I force this guy to take a contested shot from near the top of the box, it's a save. That changes a lot for this team. And this team was already 4-2 on the road without a goalie like Nick Rose between the pipes. Definitely going with Calgary to keep the road vibes going. And then I was never picking against Calgary anyway. I'm just excited to see what levels this team can take with a guy like Nick Rose in net. I think we return back to the Calgary they have been the last couple of years. Nick Rose, very similar to Christian Del Bianco and what he was able to bring this squad. You know, not sure if it's going to be the same, better, worse. We'll find out. But as far as potential off of what he has been in the league for the last couple of years, he should fill that role of what this team is used to seeing from a goaltender when they had Christian Del Bianco.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm taking Calgary for the road record, and just I'm tired of sounding dumb by not picking road teams. Road teams win when you make picks or you're betting right now. Do it responsibly, but I'm going Calgary. Final game, 10 Eastern, Halifax at Las Vegas.
I'm also going to pick Halifax here. And this one is not so much on the road records as it is on Vegas. Has just been so up and down this year. They win a game, then they lose 3 in a row. They win 2 games, lose a game. Like, there's no consistency with their squad, and then they have pieces moving around. Holden Cassoni could come in and jump them right back to being a competitive squad, or it could take them a little minute to figure it out. On the other side, Halifax is low-key making a little bit of a push right now. They're kind of putting some things together and really starting to be a solid squad. So I kind of trust them a little bit more in this game.
Yeah, I'm going Halifax as well. Road split makes a ton of sense. Vegas has just been inconsistent, like you said. But we'll see. I think it could be a fireworks game. Both of these teams like to get a little scrappy, and I think Tyson Bell is eligible to come back this week, if I'm not mistaken, or next week. So if it is this week, that's a boost on the defensive side of things for Halifax. So I'm going to go Thunderbirds as well, which means we're in lockstep, Deej. Maybe we don't sound stupid for the first time, or maybe we end the run of the road team's success. One or both could be true. Georgia, Rochester, Buffalo, Calgary, Halifax are the picks. All the road teams outside of Rochester getting dubs this week. In our books, you can leave your picks in the comment section or laugh at our picks at our voicemail line, speakpipe.com/OTBLaxPod. But those are the Week 14 NLL Picks of the Week, brought to you by Kenwood Beer. Moving right along, because it has been a wild week in the lacrosse world, and our next segment brought to you by our PLL app Code. Guys, the PLL app is your one-stop source for all things PLL, whether it's articles, fantasy lacrosse, gamified action, answering trivia, polls. The PLL uses this information to better the league, better the fan experience. And the PLL app is one of my most used apps on my phone on a day in and day out basis. Download the PLL app, and when you go to the redeem code section, use code OTBPOD. That's code OTBPOD, OTBPOD, for 500 XP on your account. You're probably asking, what does XP get you? Well, it levels you up in the app, so you unlock benefits inside the app in the PLL shop. Experiences at game weekends, the whole 9 yards. Like, it is truly the coolest app on the market. Download the PLL app, use code OTBPOD in the redeem code section for 500 XP on your account. PLL free agency's getting a little wild, Deej. We've had some signings, some re-signings, some rumors, and the Japan rosters have also come out in terms of news this week. Let's start with the PLL news. John Grant Jr. parting ways with the California Redwoods as the assistant coach. Deej is the resident Redwoods supporter, fan, savant. I think you and I can both agree this was the best move for all parties involved.
Absolutely. The offense has been struggling. That's been no surprise for the last couple of years. I feel like him stepping into a new role at the college level played some part into this and is going to allow him to really pour into that program and continue to help Lees McRae be who they are and become a better program. But more importantly, I think it just gives a little more life to the offensive players on the Redwood squad, and it's going to be able to allow them to kind of start, not necessarily over, but change directions and shift things to better adequately use the skill and the players that you have and putting them in good positions. Not that John Grant Jr. couldn't do that, but just the vision and the philosophy he had for the offense wasn't coming to fruition. So eventually you have to make moves. And I don't think this was a move of you don't have the skills. I think it was more of just a move of this isn't working.
Yeah, it felt for a long time, and I brought this up over the summer, and we've talked about it. We've talked about it with other people. It just felt like since John Grant Jr. has come in to coach the offense, he was doing it from an MLL stylistic approach, and you could tell the Redwoods offense was just slow, stagnant, boring, while every other offense had a degree of just intrigue, flair, speed that the Redwoods offense just did not have. And we've talked about this too, both on and off pod. You see the teams that are succeeding, with a few exceptions to the rule, like the Archers. The teams that are finding success in the PLL right now are the teams that have one or more former PLL pros on their coaching staff. You look at what the Atlas have done. Stephen Brooks, a phenomenal lacrosse mind. He's been on that staff with Mike Pressler, was there with Rubior. They found their way. You look at the Maryland Whipsnakes this year. They were kind of in a lull and trending downwards. They bring in Drew Snyder. Boom, they're in the championship game again. You look at the Boston Cannons last year. Brand new defense. They bring in Kyle Hartzell. He molds them into finding their way, and the Cannons defense figures things out as the season rolls along. You look at the teams that haven't had a former PLL pro on their coaching staff. The Redwoods, the Outlaws, the Water Dogs, the Chaos. They've all had a mixed bag of results to a degree, depending on certain factors. And I think prior to Copeland stepping down, the Water Dogs were more so in the boat of the Archers, where they were operating at a clip that they didn't necessarily need it, and they had cohesion on the coaching staff to succeed. The Redwoods coaching staff turnover since year one to now has been a little chaotic, but Chris Collins has done a great job with the defense and goaltending. That has not been the true problem for the team. The Chaos offense, pretty bad the last couple of years. Granted, there's some unmitigated circumstances to that with NLL crossover and all of that kind of, playing itself out. But even when guys were there, especially last season, offense, not good. The Outlaws seem like they're finding their way. They were almost in a boat of like finding their identity and recovering from not having Brendan Nickturn, where they built their team around him being the guy, and then he disappears with military obligations, and it's like, what do we do? Feels like they're kind of on an upward trajectory, though. And then the Archers are just the gold standard. You don't need to shift that coaching staff at all. They coach at a clip that is championship caliber. But who, if you had your pick of who Nat St. Laurent could hire, it could be anybody out there, who would you want as the offensive coordinator for the California Redwoods?
Deemer class.
I like that.
He's probably like he's kind of the only one that comes to mind at the moment. Because the biggest thing is I like want someone that has enough knowledge about PLL. Not just lacrosse, but like the PLL game is different. Having knowledge about PLL, and like, which also means like I would be okay with someone who's watched every single game and has seen extensive film and has paid attention to the intricacies of PLL versus MLL and versus field lacrosse at the college level, and will know how to put players in advantageous positions. I just don't know, who those people are at this moment. But I know Deemer Class is able. He could put together an offense at any level of lacrosse, and it's going to be successful.
Deemer Class is somebody I would love the Water Dogs to hire, because I think he like you said, knows how to run a PLL offense to a T. I'm trying to think of like potential like just other options that would be out there of like former PL. I mean, I don't know if he has any interest in coaching, but I do think from a lacrosse offensive mind, Ryan Brown would be amazing at coaching a PLL style offense. Has won in the PLL, is just a proven winner and arguably the greatest shooter of all time. I think he would be a fascinating coaching choice if it's something he wanted to pursue. But I do think like if you have a coaching opening in the PLL at this point, it needs to be a former PLL player, because that's where you're going to find the most success. Unless that candidate is so like otherworldly and talented from a coaching perspective, I think you have to go the route of a former pro who knows the PLL style of coaching and gameplay.
Which is very different than every other style of coaching that you're going to get out there. And I think that's what a lot of people overlook at, even with some of the head coaching positions. I think that's kind of something that people have to look at is, some of the people that have put in for some of these jobs are great lacrosse minds, but a great example of that is Tierney. He's kind of been stunned at the professional level in terms of PLL with just the differences in the game. And you have to be able to actually know what you're doing, which he's made great adjustments as time has gone on because he is that great of a coach. But when you got a coordinator and you have an opportunity to go and get someone who knows exactly what position these players have been in, it makes things a lot easier.
I was going to bring up another name and now I'm forgetting who I was going to say. Crap. I forget who I was going to bring up. Oh, I think Steve DiNapoli would be another, if he wants to coach, he would be a fantastic coach at the PLL level. And, it's weird that like we get the candidates for the head coaching spots, but we don't ever see kind of the assistant coaches. So we won't really know until the moves are made. But it's going to be interesting to see who gets hired there, who the Cannons' new defensive coordinator is going to be. But yeah, John Grant Jr., the first big domino. Some other moves. Logan Wisnauskas. I know it was up in the air on whether or not Logan was going to go back to Denver or what his path was going to be. Signs a 3-year extension with the Denver Outlaws to form the All-Tewaaraton Award attack line. I love the move. I'm excited for Logan to be healthy because he was injured for a majority of last year. To have a healthy Logan Wisnauskas coupled with Pat Cav and Brennan O'Neill and what we saw from Graham Bundy Jr. last year out of the midfield, the Outlaws are building a team that is going to be scary, not just for the now, but for the long term. You couple that with what we would assume to be the return of Justin Anderson in free agency. We couple that with Cross Ferreira being on the team, Sam Handley, another year in the league, Dalton Young, who had a phenomenal year last year, Josh Sawada, who was great for them last year in the absence of Logan Wisnauskas, Dylan Gengar Gregar back, who anytime he was on the field, he was making plays. Plus, the Outlaws are running it back on defense. A big unknown was whether or not Jesse Bernhardt and Mike Manley were going to be back. They're both coming back. That's also news coming out of the Denver Outlaws camp. Both Mike Manley and Jesse Bernhardt are back. Mike Manley will be the oldest player in the PLL next year, which is pretty funny because even at their press conference last season when they lost to the Whipsnakes, we weren't sure if we were going to see either of them again, but they're both running it back. You also have Jake Pacino on this roster. Shout out to Brian. I would assume Nick Grill gets re-signed in free agency as well. And Owen McElroy, Sean Scanoni, Matt Note, a trio of goalies who are very, very talented. Luke Weirman really showed a lot from the face-off position. And the big domino, as reported by our good pal Dan Arestia, Zach Geddes is headed to Denver in free agency. I don't know about you, but the Outlaws are looking spicy.
More than spicy. Nobody saw some of these moves happening, i.e. Zach Geddes.
Especially because it was reported before Towers stepped down that there was a contract on the table for him to sign an extension with the Chaos. And now that is no more, and he's reportedly going to the Outlaws.
Yeah, like I was telling you pre-pod, I don't know if I trust anybody to stay with Chaos at the moment just because everything is changing there. So we may see some more kind of big names leave that Chaos squad and, decide to go somewhere else. Or we may see some names that we weren't expecting go to Chaos end up with Chaos because of the changes. So that shook up a lot there. This is kind of the first big move in that area, but it really strengthens Denver. And it kind of tells you what Sudel has in mind. He's looking to truly make a push. Like he's like, look, we're young, but we got talent. We have talent all over the field. And now with, Owen McElroy had a great season last year stepping in for Scanoni. You still have Scanoni, so you have two good goalies. You have a star-studded attack line now. Your midfield with Graham Bundy and Justin Anderson could use some fluff, but the pieces are there. You brought in Dylan Gargar, and I feel like there's someone else on that midfield that I'm thinking of.
Dalton Young,
yeah.
And Sawada's there, and they still have Sam Handley, who had an amazing year last year compared to his rookie campaign.
So there's tons of pieces there for them to flourish. We didn't talk really anything about their defense or that rope unit that they have in the middle. So Denver's moving in a great position, and any team not named Denver should be a little worried for what they're going to bring out in the PLL season. They're going to be a team to reckon with, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them make it back to the playoffs.
That rope unit is young as hell, too. I know you and I both agree that the Archers Tricity Midi room is like the model of perfection almost, with Piper, Connor Marr, Bo, and they're getting Treasy back this year. But you add Zach Geddes to Alexander Smith, who is 25 years old and signed through 2027. Ryan Terefenko, who's 26, signed through 2026. Will Haas is a free agent. It wouldn't shock either of us, I think, if he went back for another year, especially with Manley and Bernhardt running it back. And your cornerstone defenseman in JT Giles Harris. Like, top to bottom, this team, I know we talked about it last year with the draft they had and how successful every draft pick was, but now you're adding Zach Geddes to this roster, a short stick D-midi of the year finalist who genuinely, I mean, I'll ask you, do you think we can talk about it now?
What is it we're talking about?
I voted for Zach Geddes for
Oh
short
yeah,
stick humidity.
I think we can now. Yeah,
We're in the clear.
I think so.
The time frame on that is run out.
I believe that time frame has passed.
I voted for Zach Geddes for short stick humidity of the year last year. I thought he deserved it 100%. That's not to say Danny Logan didn't or any of the other candidates didn't. I forget who else was nominated, but Zach Geddes had a phenomenal, like he had a breakout year last year. And to add him with Terry, with Alex Smith, with potentially Will Haas, we were talking pre-pod, like you can make the argument that the Denver Outlaws rope unit and that short stick D-midi room is in the same tier as the Archers, and really the only thing that separates the Archers from them is that that whole short stick D-midi room, all of them have at least one championship.
Yeah, that's literally the only
And
thing that separates them.
Three out of four have 2 rings on their fingers. So I mean, amongst 4 guys, they have 7 rings. You know, they're out here on Tom Brady time. But I love what Denver's doing. I'm very intrigued to see, you know, do they bring an Eric Law back to kind of be that final run for him potentially? You know, you look at their midfield that is very loaded and very congested. You know, who's getting game day action? I think we can agree Graham Bundy Jr. is a lock. Justin Anderson, pending return, is a lock. What happens with Across Ferrara? Sam Hanley, you know, how do you utilize him in this system now with just the depth at midfield? Zawada, you know, I know you would love if the Redwoods were able to pull a trade for Zawada with all the depth they have there. But this is a very wildly talented team, and adding Zach Geddes to it and having your defense run it back where they showed no signs of slowing down even at their ages last year with Bernhardt and Manley. Denver's going to make a lot of noise in that Western Conference.
Oh yeah, they're gonna make a ton, and I wouldn't be surprised for them to truly push the Archers for that top spot there. I think they're gonna have a battle on their hands. With all the question marks with another team in the West that we're gonna get to in just a moment, they could spark and have a really good season and find themselves near the top of the West. And as always, the Chaos are a team to be concerned with. So I kind of just gave away what team we're going to talk about, but if you're good at context clues. Nonetheless, there's going to be a battle for that spot in the West, but Denver is primed to make a push for not just a top 2 spot, but a top 1 spot and really kind of take control of the West.
So now on the flip side, you're the Carolina Chaos. You lose Zach Geddes in free agency. What is the pivot move if you are Spencer Ford and Roy Colsey going into navigating free agency, looking at your roster with your defensive midfield that includes free agents Pat Resch, Mark Lassini, and your only short stick D-midi that is under contract is Ian McKay?
I think a lot of it is going to be focused on signing the most important players. You know, that's who do you consider to be the most important players? Is then
I'll rattle off their free
you know
agents for
you know
if you need them.
you want your Josh Burns, your Blazes, like all those people to one feel comfortable because I know a lot of them are already signed through a certain amount of time. Get in with them, make sure they feel comfortable, they're on board with everything you got. Then you got to shift to your Jared Newmans, Jack Rowletts, whoever else.
Jared Newman has to be priority number 1, obviously. That's your biggest free agent of the bunch now that Zach Geddes is reportedly gone. But you look at the rest of the Chaos free agents, it's CJ Costabile, who is 35, but still playing at a very high level. Mark Glacini, who is 32 and barely suited up last year for you. Ryan McNulty is signed through 2025 now. Austin Kaut, Sergio Perkovic, James Riley, Pat Resch, Jules Henningberg, Kyle Jackson, and Jared Newman. Those are the Chaos free agents. So to me, of that list, like Jared Newman is obviously like priority number one for a multitude of reasons. Number one, keeping that defense intact in front of Blaze. Number two, he's one of Blaze Reardon's best friends. You want to keep Blaze happy with a new regime. You bring back Jared Newman. But I think if you're Chaos, you know, you have 4 draft picks. The short stick D-midi approach, like, would it shock me if Glacini and Pat Resch are back? Absolutely not. Those boys are Chaos boys through and through. They've been with the team since day one. It would not shock me in the slightest. But you search through the free agent pool of short stick D-midis that are out there right now. It's not necessarily a deep free agent class.
Do they even go draft one? Or I said, do they even sign one? Because they could.
That's what I was going to say.
There's a couple of good ones in the draft, and no one else really needs one.
I was going to say, because I would be stunned if Danny Logan leaves the New York Atlas in free agency, but he is a free agent, but I would assume he is major priority for Mike Pressler. Pat Aslanian is a free agent. Does he fit Roy Colsey's system or whoever his assistant coaches are going to be? We don't know because we don't know who his assistants are, but definitely somebody to keep an eye on. He's only 27. You look at the rest of the list here. Somebody like Carter Parlett, you know, made his debut in Champ Series. Was chirping. That kind of fits the Chaos mantra a little bit. I thought he played relatively well. Granted, it's 6s. Can that translate to, you know, full-fledged field at the pro level? That remains to be seen, but definitely somebody to keep an eye on, especially because Spencer Ford and Roy Colsey were at Champ Series. You'd be kidding yourself if they weren't doing a little scouting out there on the teams that were playing. Carter Parlett's definitely an interesting name I would keep an eye on. That's no sources, no nothing. Just an interesting name who doesn't have a whole hell of a lot of PLL experience, but is a young player that you could bring into your team and could be one of those like nice little free agent pickups. Will Haas is a free agent. I think he would go back to Denver, if anything. And then the other short stick D-midi free agents, Ron John, who we saw, I think, in one game in the PLL. Jake Higgins is also an interesting name to keep an eye on, free agent from the Water Dogs. Jake Richard, also a free agent still. So those are also 2 short stick D-midis that could be available. And that is everybody. So yeah, like you said, I was going to bring it up as well. If I'm Chaos, maybe you sign a Carter Parlett. Maybe you bring back one of Pat Resch, Mark Glacini, and then you go draft one. Get your next Zach Geddes.
And I think the bigger thing with that is nobody in this draft really needs, you know, a short stick D-mid. So there's a chance you don't have to waste or I don't want to say waste. You don't have to use a high draft pick to get the guy you're looking for. You can wait till the 2nd, 3rd, maybe even 4th round to snag that D-mid that is number 1 on your chart. And I would probably be looking at 2 to 3 D-mids to have on my chart, just to have them there and available, ready to go when the time comes, just in case a few get snatched off the board and you know, unforeseen circumstance. But there's a couple good ones coming out. Obviously, Devin McLean is kind of the top-notch one that's coming out of Notre Dame that's got the big asterisk next to his name is, you know, probably the best short stick D-mid in the country. But there are tons of other options out there as well. And there's a chance for them to find a diamond in the rough and just add to what is already a gritty squad.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, every other type of draft when it's like, oh, position of need going into the draft, short stick D-midi is definitely a position of need for the Carolina Chaos. I think it might be their number 1 position of need.
I think so, because I think a lot of everything else is already covered, and you can always just supplement your midfield and attack in the draft. Like, you're never really looking for the next one. You're kind of just looking to add to what you already have.
Yeah, I think it's short stick D midi and then probably midfield just to get younger. But short stick D midi, I think, is priority number one for them in free agency and the draft, number one overall. But definitely something you heard it here first. No sources, just vibes. Carter Parlett to the Chaos makes a lot of sense.
It does. It makes almost too much sense.
Some other moves: the California Redwoods, bringing back Romar, bringing back Nakai, and bringing back, who am I blanking on? Who is the other re-signing? Ryan Tierney.
Okay. I was about to start throwing out names. And that was not even close to the first name that was going to come out of my mouth.
Those are the three official re-signings so far for the Redwoods. Departure of John Grant Jr. could open up some things potentially to just utilize those three guys' skill sets a little bit better or more efficiently. Resident Redwoods aficionado, Coach Deej, your thoughts on the big three: Ryan Tierney, Nakai Montgomery, Romar Dennis being back?
What kind of thoughts do you want? No. Genuinely, I'm just in the mindset of giving everyone the benefit of the doubt and a new shot with a new system coming in. The last couple of years have been rough on the offensive end. Nakai does provide the one thing I've been cool with Nakai about is that if he's having a bad year offensively like he had last year, he still provided spark, still provided energy, still played very well on the defensive end. We just couldn't get him to score a goal. And to me, that's okay. You're still contributing to this team in many different ways. We don't necessarily need you to score goals. We have plenty of other options for goal scorers who just weren't doing their job. Romar coming back, please shoot something other than 2. Can we get the old Romar back? You know, the Romar that dodged down the alley and let one rip. Let's get that Romar. And maybe this team is solid. Can Ryan Tierney actually play? Can we put him in the midfield as a speed dodger? Like, there's open, endless possibilities with the 3 guys returning and whoever else returns back to this team and what the system looks like under, new regime. But realistically, these guys to me are on a prove it year. To me, it should be a contract year for these guys. Granted, it's not, but to me, you're proving that you're worth what we just signed you for. Mm-hmm. That the reason you're still on this active roster, prove it this year, or it might be time to shift and look at trading those guys or whatever the case may be.
And I think Romar in particular is a culture guy in that locker room. I think what Romar brings on the field, wildly talented player when he's on. But I also think what he brings as a leader in that locker room is pivotal, especially in what could potentially be a team without Rob Pennell for the first time since 2021, a team without John Grant Jr. now. I think Romar and the connection that he has with Nat is pivotal. And I think he's not necessarily an extension of the coaching staff, but he is like a core leader in that locker room. And I think that is important for a team that is trying to kind of find itself for the first time in a long time. They've kind of just been, looking around, trying to just go with the vibes. Now I think they're trying to kind of find an identity for the first time. And I think Romar's going to be pivotal for that. I think Ryder Garnsey's going to be pivotal for that. And I think that's a huge part on why you bring Romar back as well, is that you need kind of that fixture in the locker room to steady the ships if need be in the early go of the season and just throughout the year. I think Romar is a brilliant leader And what he brings in that department is almost priceless. And you need somebody like that when the Redwoods are going through the current state of the team right now.
Yeah, you need somebody who's just going to come in and be themselves, but also understands what it's like to be at the bottom, what it's like to be at the top, what it's like to be in the middle of a rut, and just understanding how energy plays into that. I think Romar is a big person of knowing that positive energy is important no matter what kind of situation you're in, how negative energy pours into a group and how it takes away from that group. And he's just a guy that understands energy, not only in a group setting, but an individual setting, and just how it relates to the world and human beings, and does a great job of regulating his own energy, but also just the energy of a group that he's in. There were times last year where you wouldn't be able to see it unless you're paying attention or looking for those kinds of things. But he was doing all those kinds of things throughout the season, which still gave the Redwoods a shot at the end of the year to wiggle into the playoffs and try and make something happen.
Yeah. Trying to think if there was any other big free agent moves. Kobe Smith re-signed with the Atlas through 2025. So that's also big. LSM off the board. But the big news that hit Lacrosse Twitter tonight as we record this Thursday night. Deej, let's have a moment of silence because unfortunately the lacrosse community will no longer wake up feeling like Chris Greasy ever again.
Don't say ever. You can always come out of retirement.
That's true, but doesn't feel like that's going to be the case because Chris Gray has announced his retirement from professional lacrosse after one of the shortest stints in the pro game for such a high draft pick. A former pre-draft consensus number 1 overall selection in the 2022 PLL draft. Was traded to the Redwoods last year. Played in 8 games. And is now hanging up the cleats. Obviously, part of this is career-based. Chris Gray has a big-time 9-to-5 job. I don't know, man. It's weird because Chris Gray is so talented, and our guy Topher Adams said he becomes one of lacrosse's like biggest what if candidates of all time. And like, what if we did get to see Chris Gray with the Redwoods in a system not with John Grant Jr.? Like, there's so many like branch off universes that you can go in with Chris Gray. Finishes his career 30 games, 90 points, 51 total goals, 48 of them being 1-pointers, 36 assists, 27% shooting percentage for his career, 32 ground balls, 1 power play goal, 57 turnovers. Easily his worst season was last year with the Redwoods. After only playing in 8 games, scoring 12 points. Deej, the floor is yours. The Chris Gray trade that you were spot on from the jump.
I was right. It's the first thing I want to say. I was right. The second that tweet dropped and they said it, you sent it to me and I was like, this is stupid. You were like, no, bro, there's this and there's that. And I was like, no, this is dumb. This is not what we needed to do. It's going to come back. It's going to come back and bite us. And here we are. It has bitten us fully in the ass. Chris Gray gave us 8 games, 12 points. And we gave up a first-round pick and arguably one of the best lacrosse drafts to ever happen. I don't think it's all Chris's fault. I don't blame Chris at all, actually. He did what's best for him. He wasn't in an advantageous position to be successful. I just don't get why it happened in the first place. If you wanted Chris Gray that bad, wait till he becomes a free agent and sign him. Then it's not a big deal. Redwoods fans don't care nearly as much about the bad decision as we do now. That draft was so good. Also, now we're in a position where we have to fill a hole. He was technically a starting attackman.
Playing midfield most of the year.
We have to fill that hole. With who? Not to mention that there's another attackman on this team that may not get re-signed, which means there's a second hole to fill on the attack line.
Sir, a second hole has hit the California Redwoods attack line.
Like, bruh. When all of this could have been avoided by not being so trigger happy. Don't be so trigger happy. And the thing for me is, I don't like the part I don't like about this is Chris's ceiling was so high. There's no telling what we could have gotten from him. But at this point, it literally is just all hypothetical potential. Never going to see it now. And it just feels like a waste. It feels like we're digressing. What once felt like one of the best GMs in the league has quickly turned into a, is this too much for you? Or not necessarily is this too much, but just more so, are you really thinking through all of your decisions now? Or are you running with maybe your first thought or like your feelings on a guy? Because I feel like he probably liked Chris Gray coming out of college and just was like, yeah, I want him on my team. Finally got an opportunity to do it and was like, all right, I'm going to make it happen. Which is like, okay, you like a guy, you want him there, cool. But don't possibly screw yourself over later. If they really wanted to give Chris Gray up, they would have made it happen without a first-round pick. Or if not, they would have been like, nah, bro. And then they would have just not played him, and then you could have picked him up out of the player pool / free agency. Trading for a guy that you knew at least wasn't going to play the first game is questionable to me. And that's a little insider information that I had. Like I was able to talk with Nat at some point, and he did know he wasn't going to play the first game. That I can kind of get because maybe in Nat's head he's like, okay, miss game 1, you're there for the other 9.
Especially because they had a bye week 1. So it was really missing week 2. So you had 2 weeks there. He comes, the Philly weekend, played June 29th, July 5th, July 27th, 28th for homecoming weekend, August 3rd, August 9th, August 16th. Played in 8 out of the 10 weeks. Or 10 games, I should say. Yeah, I mean...
And I asked him, I was like, well, why'd you take him anyway? He was like, well, it's only supposed to be 1 week. That's not...
Which is a fair thing.
Big of a deal. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll see this out.
Which just begs the question. We were talking a little pre-pod, and it's just like, you wish that you could get 1 more year of Chris Gray now that, and this is like not me shit talking John Grant Jr., But it was just so obvious that his offensive system did not fit the roster that was constructed here. And it makes you wonder, like, how much string pulling was John Grant Jr. doing on game day for the offensive, just like system, that there was no cohesion whatsoever. It felt like everyone was playing a different style of offense, where it was like you could almost tell, like, this group here was listening to what Nat wanted to run. And when those guys did what they were doing, it looked good. And then you had this faction over here doing what John Grant Jr. was doing. And when you combine them, it was an unmitigated disaster. And it just makes you wonder, like, was it almost like too many cooks in the kitchen with decision making and roster building and trying to appease, a style of offense? And you'll never get the full story, but it sucks that it's come to this. And on top of that, with that trade, the Redwoods, you got 8 games of Chris Gray and Garrett Degnan, and you gave the New York Atlas their franchise goalie for the next 10 years, who's a generational player, a Team USA candidate, and just an absolute animal who's 23 years old.
And, like, them getting the goalie isn't that big of a deal. Like, great for them. They went out and did the right thing with their pick. There's no guarantee the Redwoods would have even taken Liam Entenmann there. The bigger thing is you gave up a first-round pick and one of the best drafts ever for a guy that fizzled out on you after 1 year. It's just, in hindsight, it looks like a bad move. Just all around. And I'm trying to hold some privilege here, but with other information I know, it's a bad move. Like, hindsight, it was an awful move, arguably the worst move he's made when you look at it hindsight, especially when you know some of the stuff that we know after having some conversations with him. It was like, why?
And on top of that, it in turn not only makes one coach GM look incredibly smart in Mike Pressler, over here in your own conference, it makes Tim Soudan look like a fucking genius. Because our good pal Topher Adams, who we have to get on the show this year, tweeted, Chris Gray was a consensus pre-draft number 1 overall pick. Coming in, breaking the college goals record, this, that, and the third. The now Outlaws, at the time, the Chrome, selected Logan Wisnauskas number 1 overall. Now, you fast forward 3 years later, Chris Gray is hanging up the cleats, and Logan Wisnauskas just signed a 3-year contract extension with the Denver Outlaws and is going to play alongside Brennan O'Neill and Pat Cav on an attack line for one of the most exciting teams in pro lacrosse. Tim Soudan looks like a goddamn genius now. And that's on top of Soudan having his own, like, out of his own control mini flop of taking Brendan Nichtern. Like, imagine if Soudan took Chris Gray and Nichtern in that draft rather than Logan and Nichtern. I don't know if Soudan would still have a job. Genuinely.
You're right.
Like,
because that team would be
in like, sure, they still, and you don't know, like,
how things play out.
Do they still get Brennan? Do they still get Zawada? Do they still get, Dalton Young on the team? Do they still get a lot of these young pieces? Graham Bundy Jr. It's crazy this is like the 2022 PLL draft will go down as the catalyst for one of the biggest what-if discussions in pro lacrosse history.
Yes, because
it affects 3 teams. 3 out of 8 teams get affected by this.
This one trade. Shook up the entire PLL.
Like Logan Wisnauskas going number 1 overall was the domino for all of this.
And it's going to just keep trickling. It's just going to keep trickling. That's the cool thing about sports is one domino sets it off and it trickles for years.
It's the best. I hyper fixate on the Carson Wentz trade every day. Because it ended up getting the Eagles, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jalen Carter, and Cooper DeJean.
Things snowball.
Like, that's where we're at right now, almost. Is like, with the Outlaws in particular, is like Logan Wisnauskas going number 1 overall. Domino effect, Brennan O'Neill, Graham Bundy Jr., Josh Sawada, Dalton Young, Luke Weirman. Atlas getting Liam Entenman. All because Pseudo said, fuck your trends. I'm taking Logan Wisnauskas number 1 overall.
And I'm glad he did. I'm glad he did.
Because we wouldn't be having this discussion right now either if he didn't.
No, things would be totally different.
Insane. Oh. Like 3 PLL franchises are affected simply because of that draft pick.
Yep.
What a world. Look at where lacrosse has come.
We could arguably say all 8 are. Just when you look at the way the draft plays out after those picks, like everybody kind of had, almost everybody had to shift directions after that pick because of the way the board fell.
Damn. Yeah, because I mean, like, Redwoods still have that pick. Who's to say Pat Cav ends up on the Cannons to then end up on the Outlaws?
I don't know that they would have pulled trig on Pat Cav, but I don't see why not, per se. But even if they didn't, like, maybe they take Graham Bundy.
And then who knows if Matt Brandau goes to the Water Dogs, which means Zed Williams is not on the Water Dogs now.
Or maybe they take Matt Brandau. Like, there's just so many open questions there.
It's crazy.
It's literally bonkers.
Damn.
That's a rabbit hole that could go on for generations.
If we get to 2,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel, we'll do the Chris Gray rabbit hole pod.
I don't know if we got enough hours in a day for that rabbit hole.
We do. We'll block off time. Subathon, Chris Gray rabbit hole pod.
Not the subathon live on YouTube. I mean, I'm here for it.
We get to 2K.
It could be a Saturday. I can have.
We get to 2K on YouTube. We'll do the Logan Wisnauskas went number 1 overall draft pick. Here's how it affected the PLL moving forward. Subathon live stream podcast.
So tell the people, subscribe,
sub up. Another big retirement that was kind of teased at Champ Series. Kyle Bernlohr officially announced his retirement. Nothing but love for Kyle Bernlohr. He was so good to us in the media over the years. Consummate pro, consummate teammate. Even when things went awry for him in his career, late and things just, kind of started going south in terms of just performance and everything. Stayed true to the whips. Was always there to help the guys. Nothing but love for KB, and I wish him nothing but the best in this next chapter for himself post-playing career.
Yeah, hated that he's been a Maryland guy the entire time. That's literally the only thing I dislike about him. I think he's cool to talk to. He's been amazing on the field everywhere he's played. And he just brings a certain energy to his team and to the sport of lacrosse. For the most part, lacrosse is a better place when Kyle Bernlohr is around. I don't think he's going to leave the game of lacrosse anytime soon. Hope to see him back and around the PLL quite often just to have that energy around. But yeah, hated that he's always worn those dreaded colors and that awful flag. But he does have one of the best saves I've ever seen in my life, and it does happen to be in the first national championship game I've ever seen for college lacrosse. So Kyle Bernler will forever hold a special piece in my heart for that game. So does Chris Kluche, who also had a stellar game that day. They just mean a lot. That game means a lot. And Bernler's had a fantastic career. It sucked to see him get injured. Sucked to see kind of this tail end of his career kind of go down the way it has. But it was nice to see him be able to get back out on the field, make some saves, and be a part of the Whipsnakes, season the last couple of years.
Big time. So shout out to Kyle Bernler. Some other re-signings as well before we shift to the Japan rosters. The Water Dogs re-signed 4 of their own. Alex Dathakis re-signed through 2025. The boy, Christian Scarpello, signed through 2025. Matt Witcher signed through 2025. And Chris Sabia signed through 2025.
Kind of all expected.
100%. And I kind of had an inkling that Christian Scarpello is going to be back. He almost inadvertently teased it on Underground Sports Philadelphia when he came on pre-Super Bowl. But good to keep that defense intact. Sabia had an injury-riddled season last year, so it'll be nice to have him back healthy. Witcher was phenomenal last year. Scarpello is a fucking dog. Love that dude. And I'm excited to see Stath, the way he's been playing in the NLL, how he plays in a full season, full training camp, no worries about college in the PLO.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see just how his game flourishes, how he fits into his squad, and just how coaches will be able to use the best parts of him to continue to flourish and be great in the sport of lacrosse. That's kind of the cool thing about lacrosse is as your role changes, you change as a player, but you also are still very important. There isn't one player that's more important than another, as we talked about a little bit earlier, and coaches do a great job of showcasing how important every player is and pointing out how important their role is. And especially at the PLO level, with rosters being the sizes that they are, everybody is that important, and it's shown on game day.
100%. So shout out to those boys getting those extensions. But we do have the Japan rosters, Deej, in terms of final PLL news here. Both the PLL and WLL Japan rosters for 2025 have dropped. I don't know when the games are. I believe it's sometime in March typically, so we'll see that pretty soon. But here is the PLL roster. Your attack group, TJ Malone, Ryan Ogevin, Matt Moore, Chris Aslanian. Your midfield, Romar Dennis, Miles Jones, who is a captain, Justin Anderson, who is a captain, Graham Bundy Jr. Your short stick D middies, Nakai Montgomery and Piper Bond. Your face-off athlete, James Riley. Your LSMs, Jared Connors, Tyler Carpenter. Your defense, Ben Randall, Michael Rexroad, Jack Posey. And your goalies, Colin Kirst, and the boy's going international, Matt DeLuca.
Gang, gang. Gang, gang, gang. We love you, Matt.
Head
Big
coach, Paul Rabel. Some interesting tidbits here. Nakai Montgomery, short stick D midi. How you doing? And James Riley, if I'm not mistaken, currently on the San Diego Seals.
What about him on the San Diego Seals?
He's the face-off athlete, but he's currently on the San Diego Seals, so unless he's opting out of that contract, pretty interesting to see because this game is in NLL season.
I don't think he's been taking? I don't think he's been playing though for San Diego. I'm almost positive that Zach Currier's been taking most of their face-offs, actually.
Let me see. James, I know he played in at least. See, the fucking NLL websites don't have fucking stats.
I know.
Pisses me off. But pretty interesting there that potentially there. But Nakai Montgomery, short stick D midi, how you doing? Keep it moving.
Timmy, like I was saying to you pre-pod, I don't think that's too much of a surprise. He's kind of done more of that for the Redwoods in the last couple of years than anything else. And it's a great opportunity for him to just make a play and spark transition. So it's a good role for him. It's one that fits. Yeah, I think the roster is pretty well constructed. It's just funny to see the roster every year because it's kind of who isn't playing NLL and has PTO time at their job. Like that's what it screams out at me. And it's just so funny to see, like, oh, okay. Y'all had a little extra time to spare.
That's so funny.
But it's like so true. Which is like no disrespect to anybody who's going, but it's just so funny that like it seems like they just sent out a mass email to all the players, like, all right, getting ready to go to Japan.
The only ones we know that
free?
Aren't having to take PTO are Romar because he's a PLL employee, and Miles Jones because that motherfucker is full-time lacrosse.
Yep. So it's really just like
also
I can imagine them just like sending out a memo. Like, all right, who's coming?
James Riley did suit up for the San Diego Seals just last week.
I mean, hey, what do I know? What do I
know? But yeah, very excited for that. And then the WLL roster is pretty interesting. I like the makeup of the team. So we have Andy Aldave, Dempsey Arsenal, Abby Bosco, Captain Lizzie Colson, dog. Aaron Kuykendall, Emily Harris-Chuck, Ali Mastriani, captain. All rise for the Izzy Skane Stan podcast. Izzy Skane on the squad. Sammy Joe Tracy, Kate DeVere, Paulina DeFada, your goalies. And then the interesting one here, one player who is not on a WLL roster is going to Japan, and that is Megan Kinna. Coached by
Megan's got game.
Yeah. Coached by Rachel DeCecco. Yeah, these games are mid-March, like about 2.5 weeks from now, March 15th, for the women at least. But yeah, pretty cool that they're bringing Megan Kinna to kind of get the WLL flow of like, hey, we didn't see these players, but guess what? There's a player pool, there's this, and kind of give it the feel of like growing the league that much more. And I like that there's a little versatility. There's players from each team from the Champ Series on this roster. Was kind of surprised that Charlotte North's not going to be there, but maybe she don't got that PTO.
I mean, that's what it's looking like.
You used it all up at Champ Series.
Dog, I feel so bad.
Shout out to Charlotte.
I feel so bad. That's going to get clipped. And now people are just going to be like that's just going to come out every year. Like, oh, here's the I had PTO crowd. Like, damn, bro, I did that to them. And that's my fault.
Yo, Lizzie Colson
they are the unfortunate victims of a once in a lifetime late night OTB episode.
Yo, Lizzie Colson is on like the World Traveler exhibition right now. I don't know if you follow her on Instagram. She's in Lima, Peru right now.
With her husband. She just literally traveling the world.
She's in Peru with her husband. They're living their best life. I live vicariously through Lizzie and her husband. Like, they do the coolest shit, and I'm just like, I aspire to be like this. Like, she posted on her flight. She said the only thing to do is to watch Emperor's New Groove.
Yes.
It's like, yes.
That's
That's
exactly
why
what
we
you're
love
supposed
Lizzie
to do.
Colson on this show, man. But I'm so pumped for Japan. The Japan exhibition is always so much fun, and this is the first WLL All-Star team going, so that's very exciting. Anything else from the old game
Not
that I
PLO
potentially
wise.
missed?
I don't think so.
So that wraps it up there as we shift to the college game. And that is brought to you by our friends over at 47 brand. We love 47 here, guys. They are truly the best in the headwear game, the apparel game. I'm rocking the 47 brand Eagle Super Bowl champions hat right now. They're the best, like genuinely full send, no better hats than 47 brand. They drop new collections literally like every single week. And Deej, as we always do during the 47 ad read, we're going to go to the NCAA page with their over 200 plus teams, and we're going to have you select a team for us to search through. And the funniest part is you're not going to see it on screen. You use the link in the description, everyone, and you go shop 47 brand and get free shipping on all orders when you use our link and join the 47 family today. So, Deej, where are we going in the college world to look at their apparel this week?
Let's go back west. We're gonna drop outside of Division One NCAA lacrosse. We're gonna step into Division One MCLA lacrosse. Let's take a look at those Oregon Ducks.
Quack Attack going to Oregon. Where are we? Here we go. Genuinely, Oregon's got some of the cleanest apparel in the game. That vintage old school duck head is incredible. Like, goodness gracious, they might be, if we ever did a top 10 of any team, college, pro, in terms of apparel, they're in my top 10. Easy, full send clearing.
No
because
questions.
my goodness, is this gear just sick. You can check out all of the Oregon apparel, headwear, and everything that 47 brand has to offer, plus over 200 collegiate schools available to search through and survey. Use our link in the description, shop 47 brand, and join the 47 family today to get free shipping on all orders with our link in the description. And shout out to 47 for being the best in the game. Deej, how are we looking in the college game? What's popping off this week? What do we have to look forward to? And what are you most looking forward to from college this week?
Lucky for us, things get popped up on Friday. The ACC's got a couple of matchups going down against the Ivy League. Princeton is going to go down and take on Duke down in North Carolina. Penn is also taking the trip down to North Carolina as they will take on UNC. Townsend and UMBC keeping that battle for Maryland running. And then Denver plays again against Marist. But not a lot going on Friday. I think actually the game of the day Friday after the two ACC Ivy games is High Point, Delaware. I think that one's actually going to be pretty fun to watch. Coming up on the weekend, Georgetown is playing some ball against Brown. Actually, let me look at ESPN really quickly. So we look at some times for some of these. $5 p.m. ACC Extra for Penn and North Carolina. ACC Network at 6 p.m. for Duke and Princeton. Denver and Marist at 8 p.m. High Point and Delaware at 7. On the first, I mean, bright and early, we got 1,000 games at noon. Like always, ranked Colgate is going to take on Loyola Maryland. Ranked Fairfield taking on Providence. Army ranked, still looking to continue their great season, which has started off well. They're 5th in the country. Ohio State coming off a shellacking of Virginia, 14-5. Going to look to keep their winning ways going as they're 5-1 on the year, the most wins in Division I lacrosse, and they're currently on a 5-game win streak, the longest in the country for Division I men's lacrosse right now. So I don't know about anybody else, but I kind of got eyeballs on the Buckeyes for now, helping the case for the Big Ten to be a better conference. Number 10, Georgetown has Brown. They're going on the road for that game. Number 12, Harvard welcoming in Marquette. Number 9, Penn State on the road at Yale. All of these games, by the way, at noon. Most of them on ESPN Plus. On ESPNU at noon. Number 19, Virginia on the road at Johns Hopkins University. Big Ten going to look to steal one from the ACC, who has dominated them so far this year. 20 ranked Boston U on the road at Navy, also a noon start. Here we go, some 1 p.m. games. St. Joe and Rutgers. Rutgers going to look to get back into the conversation. And then the true game of the week. 1v2. Big Ten versus ACC. Notre Dame versus Maryland. This game is in Notre Dame, I believe, at 1 p.m. I might go. I just might go. But yeah, that's going to be the game to watch. So if you're not there, make sure it's on your screen. 2 p.m. Syracuse travels to Utah.
Shout out Joey
to take on the Utes out west. We get some more action Sunday as Princeton takes on North Carolina down in North Carolina, 11 a.m. on ACC Extra. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. Those are replays. No, they're not. They flipped. Oh, my God. Why are they doing that? North Carolina plays Penn first on Friday. Duke plays Princeton first on Friday. They both flip. Penn will then take on Duke on Sunday. Princeton takes on North Carolina on Sunday. Denver also back in action against Quinnipiac. We have another ranked matchup. Richmond making the moves up to 14th in the country. They're going to take on number 3 Cornell. CJ Kirst has been absolutely unstoppable so far this year.
Future dog.
Definitely a future dog. So that's something to keep an eye on later this week. Obviously, my Michigan Wolverines take on Cleveland State on Tuesday. Georgetown and Albany on Wednesday. And that's going to wrap up the week for us in terms of college ball.
And then in the PLL app, the TLN College Pick'em games this week. Johns Hopkins and Virginia. Boston U and Navy. Maryland, Notre Dame, Princeton, North Carolina, and Penn versus Duke. I had a horrid week last week. I'm now 12-8 on the year. Still above 500.
You're not doing well.
Horrid last week. I think I went like 1-4.
I am. Give me just a second. In my college pick'em, I'm 15-6.
How do you have one more game than I do?
It says it's been 21 games.
What the heck? I'm 12 out of 20.
But I also think one of mine got counted twice. So I might be 14 out of 20. But still, I'm doing pretty well. Because, your boy knows ball.
I'm going Hopkins, Boston U, Notre Dame, North Carolina, Duke.
I went
All
Hopkins.
chalk.
Yep, that's what I went with. There's a chance I flip my Notre Dame pick. There's a chance I flip my Penn pick. Because the way Michigan played against them Blue Devils, let me tell you, this close to stealing one down there in North Carolina.
Also, speaking of North Carolina, I still cackle anytime I see anyone call Petromala Petro Boomin.
Bro, Petro Boomin be
Petro
hooping.
Boomin wants some mo.
Petro Boomin be hooping though. And
Petro.
The funny part is they're not talking about big Petro. They're talking about little Petro.
I know.
But like the bad thing about it is you could be talking about either Petro and we have no clue. We just got to have the context clues to know exactly who you're talking about.
All I hear, I got to find his goals from that game against Hopkins and just sync it up to Petro.
I think he had a nasty goal in that game too. Like, I mean, I think a filthy goal.
Yeah, I got to do that. I got to find that. Hoots, find me the clip. Find me the clip, my boy.
Please.
That's all we got for you guys on this one. What a doozy. We knew it was gonna be. Deej and I were texted. We said we hope the people are ready for a 3-hour pod, and that's exactly what we gave you. Because a whole hell of a lot happened, and it's been a crazy week. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you're following us on the socials at OTB Lax Pod across the board. Follow DJ at SCS_next great. Follow Hoots at Hoot Sports Media. He'll be Hoots on the ground this weekend at the Loud House against the Roughnecks. Follow Chase at the PLL Pipeline. Follow me at KBICZL311. Subscribe to the pod, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts in audio form. Leave a 5-star review. It goes a long way for helping this show continue to grow. Helps more people find not only Outside the Box, but all of our shows here at Underground Sports Philadelphia. So keep subscribing and subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Underground Sports Philadelphia. That is where you get full video episodes of this show every single week, full video episodes of every show on our network, clips, shorts, live streams, original video content. Like we said, if we get to 2,000 subscribers, we'll do the Logan Wisnauskas went #1 overall in 2022's PLL draft domino effect subathon live stream. So subscribe, and subscribe to the Outside the Box podcast YouTube channel. 49 more subscribers, and Deej and Hoots will be bringing you the OTB College show. So if you want that sooner rather than later, tell 49 of your friends to go subscribe to that channel. It's youtube.com/@OTB LaxPod. And of course, guys, be sure to check out Shootout For Soldiers website, shootoutforsoldiers.com/events. Check out how to register for all of their upcoming events this spring and summer. See where they're headed to a market near you, how to get involved, how to volunteer, how to donate, all that good stuff. It's shootoutforsoldiers.com/events. And they got a big one going down in Atlanta this weekend, which will be a ton of fun to be taken in. Looking forward to seeing all the content they get out down in the ATL at the 285 event. But shootoutforsoldiers.com/events to see how you can register and get involved. This has been episode number 364 of the award-nominated, honorably mentioned, number 9 NCAA ranked, and of course viewable on YouTube, and a nice little vintage OTB After Dark episode of the Outside the Box podcast, the official lacrosse podcast on the Underground Sports Philadelphia podcast network. For Deej, I'm KB. Enjoy this weekend of lacrosse. We'll see you right back here next week talking a whole heck of a lot that goes down. Who knows, maybe more PLL free agent signings. You never know, but we'll be talking about it. And until then, we'll see you next time. Later, people.
Bye.